We ready? All right, cool. My guy Gary Jones, what's up, man? It's good to get you in here.
Yeah, man. Good to see you. How you doing?
Good, I'm doing real good, man. We don't know each other too well, but we know of each other, and
Yeah.
like we talked a little bit about for the podcast, I know you from back when I did a little bit of modeling, and I met you at the Pose Fashion Awards,
Yep.
and we talked for a brief second. Said, hey, maybe we'll try to connect one day. Something never happened, but
Now's the day.
yeah. Now's the day. Now's the connection. Who knew then that this was going to be the connection
Exactly.
as opposed to then? But in a lot of ways, I like it better this way, man. The modeling thing was cool. I won't say that I won't do anything in the future. Super against it, but also it was a little bit different than what I expected going into it.
Of course.
And it was, to me, a lot of it was kind of making the connections and really
The people you meet.
the people you meet and going after the people and stuff like that. And at the time, I really wasn't that dude. And I still battle with that a little bit, but I really wasn't that guy to approach people and try to sell myself to people so much, you know what I mean? Or even to just be so outgoing to make all the different connections. I remember at a couple of the settings, even like when I did CMH Fashion Week as well.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I remember at some of the events, I just kind of caught myself the one time, like kind of just sitting there chilling or being on my phone.
It could be awkward. I mean, I
Yeah.
think those environments for people that aren't used to industry type of things. And I was that person as well when I started doing like fashion weeks or fashion type of events. And, my personality particularly is laid back most of the time.
Yeah, that's about exactly explains the same situation
Yeah.
here, man, and how it was going.
But when you have to engage and like you're pushing your brand or you're trying to really get people to engage with you, it can be a little bit overwhelming because sometimes people, come off to have certain statures or, this is the successful person in the room. And so you feel like you have to approach them a particular way. But what I've learned is that people most times will accept you for who you are. And the people that don't, you probably wouldn't work with them anyway.
Right. And I definitely can't agree with more with those statements, but mine was more so like just that I was new to it. I was
Yeah.
just getting into it, and I was already laid back, like you're talking about. So I was just laying back at the things I was at, you know what I mean?
Chilling,
And then
yeah.
I would look around, and especially that fashion week is where it really hit me, is I looked around the one time and I saw the other male models like really engaging with people, especially the ones that were like just getting their foot in the door like I was.
Okay.
And they were really engaging with people and trying to make those connections and trying to get their name out there and stuff, where I was like, ooh, I probably should be doing this, but I really don't feel all the way comfortable because I've been doing it long enough. I don't really.
I mean, it's a completely different industry. And
It really is,
And there's
for sure.
there's a certain way that you can push yourself forward, and some of it is taking the initiative, and sometimes it's just people noticing you. So there's a mix of like, what is a person looking for? If you're a designer, if you're a modeling agency, and so when you're kind of getting, used to that, it's very different. I had to get used to it. Coming on the stage as a designer as well, just like, what am I looking for? What's acceptable for me? What represents my brand? Who do I want to talk to? What's uncomfortable for me?
Right.
So I get that completely.
Yeah, and then there was little weird stuff too, man. Like when you go to some of the fashion shows and they want you to wear something a little crazy, or you
Yeah.
see a lot, or there's somebody that's just, I mean, certain designer stuff that are super over the top, and it was just a lot. And
It's hard to get that overall appreciation
Yeah.
when you're just the model, because you just have to be the person that's wearing the fashion, and you don't have to like everything, but you have to wear it like you
For
do.
sure, for
And-
sure.
And I get that, because even on the side of just being in fashion, I had to evolve from where I came from, what I understood, what I like to wear personally, and then what is the fashion that's the current style, right?
Gotcha.
And so you can't be objective to just like one thing when you're trying to service multiple people. So it's the same concept.
Yeah,
when it
That
comes
makes a
down
lot of
to-
sense. That makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's get right into it then. Tell people, just starting off, so we can give your story a little bit, where you grew up and kind of how, as far as like siblings and stuff, and maybe like the area where you went
Yeah.
to school, that type of thing.
So born and raised Columbus, Ohio, Independence High graduate.
Okay.
So grew up on the east side.
What year graduate?
Independence. What year?
What year? Yeah.
97.
Okay.
The
Okay.
best year.
Yeah.
The year we beat everybody. So
My
whoever your
God.
team is, not to play.
Did you play sports or anything
Yeah,
when you were
basketball.
there?
Yeah,
Oh,
basketball,
okay, even
track.
better. I saw that a lot of your clients and stuff now are sports players, and I seen you at a few basketball games. So I was like, I gotta ask
Yeah.
about that too. I
Yeah, I
played
grew up-
basketball, and basketball's always been my thing.
Yeah, grew up playing basketball. Running track, pretty much doing, swimming, pretty much any and everything. But, in '97, we had a great team: Esteban Weaver, Kenny Gregory, played against Mike Red and all those guys. So we were ranked in the top 25 in the country, actually. when we played. So great exposure, travel with basketball, great stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah, I hear stories about Esteban all the
yeah,
time. Like
he's a
I've seen him play a little bit now, and it's different, of course. You know what I mean? Way
oh, but he's
different.
still a dog. Yeah,
He's still a beast, but it's like the old stories I hear people just like you
yeah. If we
can't
had
even.
cameras like now, he would be in the league. It's no
Right,
question.
right, right,
Yes,
right.
flat out, no question about it.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So yeah, grew up pretty much in East Haven and Southbrook. So
Okay,
East Haven, East Side, and Southbrook is kind of southeast.
okay,
So between those two neighborhoods and pretty much grew up in a single family home. One sister that's older than me,
okay.
and we went to Independence all our 4 years, but back and forth, pretty much an East Sider. It didn't really get interest in the fashion world until like my senior year.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Um,
And so you were with your mom.
just my mom,
Okay,
my
just your
whole
mom.
life.
And what kind of career? What was she into? What was
She
kind of
worked at
influence?
GM.
Okay,
Yeah, no fashion affiliation at all. My dad is in the city, but just wasn't necessarily involved too much. And they
okay.
were entrepreneurs. They were they basically built houses and contractors and things of that nature. So my dad's side of the family did that.
Gotcha.
My mom was just
So that might have been a little entrepreneurship
yeah.
blood,
On my
right?
father's side, I didn't realize, but I mean most of the people work for themselves,
Oh, okay.
and
Cool,
it
cool,
didn't
cool.
really attach to me until I was like, oh, I guess I do have that trait.
Ah,
So
gotcha. That's dope, man. That's dope.
yep.
So what about now? Married, kids, anything like that? What's a
Yes, I have a son that's 10 years old,
okay?
not married, single.
Okay.
Single and looking out.
My God, put it, get
Looking
it
for
where
a
you
good
fit
one.
it.
Nah. But yeah, so single man, have a son that's 10 years old, is here, is super active in sports and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, that's cool, man. That when you get to watch them and stuff, man. I can't. I'm ready for that already. My daughter. I have one daughter. She's
okay.
3, but I can't wait to get her into something, man, and get her watch her and get that excitement going.
Yeah, man, and my son is he talks stuff and everything. He wants $100 when he beats me. It's terrible. So it's a good time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so super athletic, family and all that good stuff. But
Okay.
Columbus native.
Okay,
Yep.
I mean, that's perfect. I love when I bring people on that I'm not exactly sure if you were born here or around what age you came here. But when people say born and bred, it's
Yeah,
even
born
it's
and
even
raised.
better, man. For
Yeah.
I think the vibe we put out here. But so you started kind of mentioning, you said that your mom really wasn't into fashion or anything like
Nah,
that.
well,
Really?
I said she wasn't necessarily into it, but she was a dresser.
Gotcha.
So
So there's a
grew up
little
in-
influence.
Oh, no, for sure. Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my mother, I mean, went to church all the time. So my mom was wearing that, Sunday's best. So she wearing her hats and different color shoes, and I always had to be suited for church like every week. So,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha.
no question.
Okay.
So there was some influence in that, from that parameters for sure.
Okay.
So my first view of fashion was probably church.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense then. So then tell me why or what was it then that put you in the mindset that okay, the suits are going to be your thing?
It took a while, but the progress really, started with my uncle who he went to Ohio State. He used to come home fresh, always with a clean white shirt, nice jacket, and a beautiful date all the time. Like,
Oh, okay.
it's always fresh. And so like he was the closest male to me, as an influencer. And so, he had a BMW, he's engineer. I'm like, okay. So between him and then I had another mentor who was he's an author and a pastor. So later on, I would see him and he always nice car, took care of his family, always in a nice suit. And so it wasn't necessarily connecting the dots. It took a while until like my senior year. So I went to school. My mom wanted to get a picture. And so I'm such a laid back guy. I was what you call a lunchtime cowboy, which means I play basketball every day. So
Right. Me too. Yeah.
at lunch.
Yeah. Every day.
But she wanted a good picture. So she's like, Gary, I want a good picture this year. I was like, fine. And I had enough sense that I didn't want to wrinkle my suit.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, well, I don't want to put it in this kind of bag. We had small lockers. No big deal. I just wear a suit to school.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing was, nobody ever seen me dressed up, and I didn't realize that because obviously I'm not thinking about it. I'm a young man. I didn't really grow up buying new shoes every week. I wore what I had. So it wasn't like I was a kid that was super fashionable every week either.
Oh, okay.
I was an athlete at heart. I wanted to always wear something different. Like
Comfortable in something you could hoop in.
Yeah, I was a Reebok dude. I didn't want to wear Jordans like everybody else.
Oh, okay.
I was that kind of guy. So I had the Iversons. It was, that type
Hey,
of
the
dude.
Iversons were fire back then.
Exactly.
Fire.
Exactly. So come to school in a suit, and then I hear Mr. Jones for the first time. So our principal was Mr. Osborne, who was one of the coolest principals out. And he's like, Mr. Jones, you look nice today. Oh, really? Thank you. And then it's females, Mr. Jones. I was like, oh, you like this too. So I got, all day bombarded by compliments. Teachers stopping me in the hallway, people saying this is how you should dress more, or where are you going, what do you have going on. I was like, I'm just taking a picture. I really wasn't thinking about it because I would wear these clothes, just not during school hours. So got stopped so many times, and somebody was like, hey, we're doing a fashion show and I want you to be a part of it. So my senior year, I'm working two jobs. I'm working at Cookers and Rallies on the east side near Eastland Mall. Um, you know, take making sure I got gas in the car, paying my little bills. I know prom's coming up. I'm gonna have to take care of that.
Mm.
And so they were like, hey, if they'll give you a percentage off if you wear a suit for the fashion show. I was like, fine, perfect. So I go in, they give me a signed number. They're like, look, this is all your number. Anybody that turns these tickets in, if they order from us, you'll get a percentage off. Perfect. So I get this tux, and it's a black tux with a purple vest and a top hat and a cane. And I come out in front of the whole school, right? So everybody's kind of coming out at different times. So I come out, I hear cheering, I hear, all the whistles. I'm like, oh, okay, we doing all right. I didn't think I was this guy, but I'll take it,
Yes, sir.
So I got a lot of compliments, a lot of great interaction. And then I always have friends on every level from, seniors to freshmen. I was a pretty sociable kid. And so shaking hands, kissing babies, like, hey, man, hey, use this, make sure you go here. And so I went to Redeem to figure out exactly how many, tickets I had turned in. And they said, listen, we've never had this type of response from anybody in all the years we've done this promotion. So he gave me 2 free tuxedos, which was equivalent to about $300.
Ooh.
So I actually gave one of my best friends a free tux. Like, look, I don't need both. You'll take one, I take one. So I was fresh for free.
Winning.
So the early understanding about personal branding and being able to connect with people, to being able to understand that like people had a connection to me, wearing my clothes a certain way and being able to communicate. And so that was just somewhat of a natural gifting for me that I didn't realize.
Oh yeah, for sure. It sounds like it was just happening organically, like you just.
Yeah, I didn't plan on it.
Yeah, like even how you were explaining it as I'm listening, I'm thinking like I'm picturing you passing out, these cards or whatever, and talking to people, and I'm like, oh, he's doing sales. You know what I mean? That's
In my mind, I'm like, hey,
yeah.
you're
just trying to do something for yourself.
I'm just trying to put myself in a position where I don't have to pay this full price.
Right.
This full ticket right here.
Yeah, you're just looking for a discount, but meanwhile you're doing basically businessman work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And putting out sales.
So that was probably that first, inclination, and then it was a few years, before I really actually got into it, where I was just doing some work, at the local church and hanging out with another mentor who's traveling all over the country, and I was going with him places, and he was always suited, just.
What was he into?
He was an author.
Okay.
He was a minister, but he traveled all over the country, like, big time places all over.
How'd that go as far as like you latching on to him to you said you kind of followed him or what?
Yeah, well, I was attending the church, and then he just kind of picked me out.
Okay.
As a person that was like, look, man, I was going to Sinclair at the time, which is a JUCO in Dayton Junior College. And so he was like, look, we'd really love to have you around more if you'd like to kind of be a part. And so he started traveling, and on occasion I would just go to Detroit with him, go to, all over Atlanta with him to big conferences, and he have a sales table, and but being able to see a person of minority, pushing the needle and, driving a nice car, taking care of his family, it was a great example for me.
For
so
sure.
I'm like, wow, everybody that I see that looks like me or that's successful is wearing a suit, is taking care of themselves, and this is how this looks. And so this can create opportunities for me. And so I sit in creating something for him. He dressed the part, he was the part. Same thing for my uncle. And so it was kind of a correlation. Well, I'm not going to be an engineer, wasn't necessarily a minister. So what I ended up doing was like really investing into the tailoring business and getting a mentor who was out of LA, a Peruvian tailor. And so ended up working with him for about 4 years.
How'd you come across him before you did it?
I just looked online and
found somebody you liked, and
was it liked his stuff. Talked on the phone. He wouldn't even let me for 2 years. He was like, no. No. And then he seen I was serious, like I wasn't letting up. And he actually gave me a shot. So we started working together. Man. Yeah, so he's working out of LA doing a lot of stuff, and then he would come here, and I would, just to do some work and start, kind of going over stuff and working with me, and we trying to start acquiring customers, and he cut some stuff for me, and then trying to work together. But then I started learning early on, like there's some cultural differences in dressing. And so like a lot of my, influences of people around me were, they were urban. So, I mean, certain people like their fit different. You're talking 18, 19 years ago. So you're talking Steve Harvey suits, you're talking long and big and wide. And so to a person that's very technical, It's a lot harder for you to understand
Is
that.
that kind of how your guy was that was training you too?
Extremely technical,
Gotcha.
all
So he was
technical.
not a
It's
fan of
all
that.
about, and the thing is that those were fads. But if you don't understand fashion and you don't know their trends, that they'll come and go. I mean, just like the super fitted look is in right now, right? But
Hmm.
it's not the most functional. So for a real tailor, they're gonna look at it and say it's ill fitting because there's not as much room for you to move, sit, breathe, bend,
Hmm.
right? So there's got to be a happy medium for both. So when I was around someone very technical, I understood that there were differences among us all. And there's a person that understands, and then you have to be a person that can filter that understanding to make sure the client gets what they want. Because people use custom clothing for so many different things, right? So you have to really get into that. So I learned really early that certain things don't fit, and here's why: because it's a cultural thing. It's like, well, why would you wear it that big? Look, I don't know. They want 4 pleats. What can we do? Let's make this happen. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get a check. He's like, look, bro. So he's upset, and then the customer's not happy. So I had a whole lot of learning in there. And then it was another master tailor that found me out of DC, and he kind of heard about me making a little bit of noise and working, and he wanted me to work with him. So I worked with him for a couple of years as well. And then it wasn't the same. He was super technical, super just all about fabrics and engineering and quality. And so he had, we were based in the same type of demographic, so he understood it completely.
Gotcha.
So I learned a whole another set of rules and how to apply them over there. And so then after doing that, my son was about to be born, and I was like, man, I've been messing with this for a while. I really wanted to kind of go further, and then it just didn't work out from a business perspective between me and him because I wanted to go more trend at the time. I had
Oh,
some
okay.
more ideas around being progressive, right? Which actually my first collection came out of that desire. But he was more sounded in the principles of like classic tailoring, and just like day to day wardrobe, which is really where most of the money's made, and it's more timeless, right? And so I started my business based off of it. Just didn't work with him.
Mm,
Because he didn't mind being creative, but he just didn't have the same mind as I did. And
gotcha.
so then I also was like, here, I have a son. I've been, kind of in this industry for 4 or 5 years, and I wanted to have something to pass on. And I knew he would do what I did, not what I said.
Okay.
And so then worked a third shift job, going to Panera, with the tickets in my hand like I was in high school. No, just talking to everybody.
Right, right, right.
Yep.
Doing the sales. So who's your first customer?
Uh, that's a great question. Uh,
Well, I mean, like
as
early
it,
on, like the
I mean, there was a
beginning.
few first customers, but
Hmm.
like I don't remember the very first one. It's a
Oh yeah,
great
that's fine.
question.
But okay,
But there
then.
was one wedding that I remember. There's a guy
Mhm.
named Warren.
Okay.
So Warren, he was a business owner, and I ran into him at a coffee shop. He was like,
Hmm.
"I want you to do my wedding."
At the
Awesome.
coffee shop.
Yeah, I ran into him. He seen me dressed.
Oh, okay,
Oh
okay.
yeah, I'm
Dressing the
walking.
part.
Oh, as if I wouldn't, right?
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
always dressed, always networking, always handing out cards. And he's like, "Look, I'm getting married soon. Would love if you took care of me." And I was like, "Perfect." So we met. I went to his house, did the fitting, picked out the color. He basically gave me all creative control. Did the wedding, and so 3-piece suit, ivory shirt, nice bow tie. Had like little, I had a satin trim on the outside. Now this is before this was trending, right?
Mm.
So we're talking 10 years ago, 11 years ago, probably. So nobody was doing that. And so the suit was such a hit. He was feeling bad. He was like, "Look, man, so many people are complimenting my suit, not my wife's dress." You know,
Ah, gotcha. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "Look, man, I
Yeah, you're
was
gonna catch some
excited."
flack for
So I
that.
was there. I don't know. I went the day of the wedding. Like when he paid for the suit, he got a full out service. You hear me?
Okay.
Rolled out the red carpet. I'm there at the wedding, tying his tie, fixing it. I had a whole nother look when he went to the reception. Took
Mm,
the jacket off. Let's do the vest walking in. You know.
mm.
Then I'm outside with the cars ready to go.
There you go.
So I never forget. And that suit was amazing about that suit. I called him later. I needed a sample. I got invited to Phoenix Fashion Week, which I'm moving ahead in the story, but I got invited to Phoenix Fashion Week and they wanted to see one of my products. So I had to call him like, "Hey man, I know you're not wearing this suit all the time. Can I borrow it? I dry clean it,
Gotcha,
So I had to
gotcha.
package it, send it all this stuff, and just to get invited to the show.
Mm.
And so I sent it, and they loved it. They ate it up because they're nothing like it. I did a bunch of different things on the suit to make it stand out, from belt loops to at the bottom where the cuff was, just like a bunch of small nuances, to really make it, an amazing looking suit. And so I got invited to the show based off that.
Oh, that's sweet, man. And how did they just contact you on social or something, or what?
So
How
I
did it
had a
go?
friend that had some ties to the person that was running the whole thing. It was like, "I think you might be good for this because you're doing some cool stuff with suits, and nobody's really, doing what you're doing, I think you should talk. So we had a conversation, sent him some pictures. He loved it, but they wanted a physical suit. So everybody had to do like an entry, and it was a bunch of people trying to get in the show, and they selected them based on the board.
Gotcha.
And so when I sent my stuff, they loved it. And so they invited me, but then I had to figure out how I was going to get there because it was all the way in Scottsdale.
Right.
So my first show ever was actually in Scottsdale, Arizona, which
Oh,
is crazy.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, you would think someone would pop off here first, but hey,
Not likely.
yeah, you take
unfortunately.
you take what you can get early
Yeah.
on. You know,
And
what I
it's
mean?
pretty normal. What I
Okay.
find is that most people, when you're talented at home, people don't see your talent because they know you as a person, right? And it takes a while for them to catch up to like, actually, you know what? You might be actually okay. I think you might be good.
That's funny. We talked about that in the very first episode of the podcast with Josh Waters that you said you know as well, and he was like, yeah, he was talking about how early on everyone just knows you as however they knew you before. So
Yep.
like you
Nicknames.
might be, you
Bunch of
might
them.
be so and so from the neighborhood. You might be Gary that plays ball. You might, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And they're like, somebody says something about doing the suits or something. You're like, Gary did I used to hoop with? Like,
Exactly.
nah, I don't know about that.
I don't know if we'll go to his store.
Yeah, I don't, that just doesn't. I don't know him like that for that. At least
Exactly.
for that. But yeah, I mean, that's dope to get that opportunity out there in Phoenix. And I seen way back when, and then again when I was going through your social stuff recently. Eventually, you're doing stuff with Alvin Gentry and Phoenix.
Yeah,
Kind
actually-
of seems like you kind of made a second home there to a degree in some ways from that experience, right?
Yeah, that first time, I mean, I had to go down there almost 3 times for the show. So
Okay.
it was probably one of the biggest shows I've ever done.
Oh, okay.
It was a 90-foot walkway, Talking Stick Resort, which is huge. It was all outside. And so they had like a pre-show. So they did a press conference with the pre-show where we're just talking about stuff. And we had 2 looks there. Then we had to come back again and do a short version of your show. Right. And then we did the main show. So I literally was investing into Phoenix for about 6 to 8 months prior to the show. And then the finale was, like 12 looks, 90-foot runway.
Gotcha.
Crazy.
And that's one of the things like that I saw early on in modeling, and or I guess I should just say in the fashion industry in general, that was kind of just surprising to me. But I mean, maybe some people know, some don't. But I don't think I gave it a ton of thought before. But it's like starting off and trying to get your name out there, your brand out there. It's like you have to really do some things where you're traveling or spending spending that money to get
Absolutely.
that name out there, and
Yeah.
things that you're not getting paid for, or that are just
yeah, they
hopefully
definitely didn't
create
pay
an
me.
opportunity. And sometimes it goes absolutely nowhere for
Yeah,
you.
there's a ton of investing on the front end. And I think you always still have to invest. Even if you quote unquote have a name, you still have to do the things that will keep you relevant. And
Right.
so early on, I took things and, made some relationships. It was an athlete there at my show the first time. I met him in Columbus and told him about the show, and he lived in LA. His name was Leon Poe.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So when I met him, he was like, "Oh man," he was like, "I live up there. I'll come." And I was thinking, "Yeah, right."
Right.
But he actually did come. So he came with his cousin. We hung out, had a great time, and forged, more of a friendship before he became a client. And I just met a ton of people, So that stage created such an opportunity for me to put Columbus on the map, for me to start actually getting my brand on the map. And what it really did was that when people seen that visibility, people like CMHA, Fashion Week, they were seeing that. And so when I came back, it really started kind
The
of
ball rolling.
Yeah, it was
Gotcha.
easier for me because they were like, "You're doing a show in Arizona," and the show was better than anything I had seen. In the Columbus area, it's one of the top 10 fashion shows in the country, actually.
Gotcha,
And they're
gotcha.
still doing it.
Yeah, that's dope, man. And do you feel like you have a kind of it's easier to make those connections with some of the athletes and stuff because you played ball and you guys have a little thing to talk about, or is it just been
Yeah, I
kind of
mean, I don't, typically with
not
athletes,
saying like it's to not to
I
interrupt
run
you,
in Leaf. Yeah.
but just not like I'm saying it's easy, like you're getting your business easy or it's some kind of like advantage. But I'm just saying, does that networking and that conversation help kind of them
Yeah.
relate with you a little bit to
I think
bring
so,
it in?
yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily lead it with, "Hey, I play ball."
For sure.
'Cause
Especially when you're talking to
they're
somebody
like-
who's in the league.
Yeah, sure you did, buddy.
Or they're like, oh yeah, for
You're
what
terrible.
team?
Exactly. Then you out there shooting for like $1,000. Like,
Right,
how did
right.
I get here? Nah.
right.
So I don't typically.
You don't leave with that.
Nah, not at all.
Right.
I'm just like, what's good?
That's
So yeah, I mean, it just depends on who it is.
Right.
But most people, if they're in a place where they have a consciousness, like most humble athletes, that I've met, they're in a place where they're very genuine and appreciative of the interaction. And so I try to just be authentic. How it would be when I meet you is the same way I am when I meet everybody, right?
Gotcha,
I don't
gotcha.
put people on any, it's just like, what's up? If you engage, then I'll engage, right?
Mm.
And so it does help sometimes because once we get to talking, we may find commonalities or people we may know. Like Leon Poe actually called me several years later, and he was the player relations guy at the Celtics.
Mm.
So I ended up staying with him, hanging out, and I met Sully, believe it or not, when he was playing for Boston, and Evan Turner when he was playing for Boston, and Jay Crowder when he was playing for Boston. And I was just there for the weekend, hanging out. I mean, I was obviously getting access to everything, but it was all just because my intention wasn't to make him just the suit. You know, it was about the relationship and me just being who I was. And most people, like I said, you know, people say real recognize real or authenticity is probably the best thing you can be.
Right, right, and I mean it makes sense, and I saw that, and it's wild to hear you say that the connections with some guys that either have some roots in Columbus or in Ohio or have done things in Ohio that you meet them outside of
Yeah,
here. You know
wasn't
what I mean?
here.
Yeah, yeah, that's wild, man.
And then when they came back, I mean, once I talked to, like, Sully was a great example, is that he played basketball with a lot of guys I knew, like a George Reese, who's on TV, who played at Independence, who was a good friend of mine. And of course, he would know Kenny and Esteban and those guys, which they're my friends.
Okay,
So then they're hanging out, and I'm probably there, you know,
okay,
like, or
gotcha.
Scooney. You know, I met Scooney years ago, been a client for a while, and Scooney's like, it's like he's from here because he knows everybody.
For sure.
And so I, you know, like Scooney's like he's a friend, you
Oh,
know,
okay,
who happens to be a client. I mean, it's kind of just one of those things that just the relationship evolved.
gotcha.
And so, like I said, it's just, you know, you know one person, and then it's pretty easy to talk to everybody else.
Okay, cool, cool. And you talking about going to Phoenix and doing that thing also leads me to another thing I want to ask about as far as like travel and stuff. So how much travel has everything have you got into over the years? Do you
Oh
do a
man,
lot of traveling?
I do a
And
ton of travel. Like I
okay.
didn't really think about it until my family would be like, "Are you in town?" Like they would call, like, "Are you home?"
Oh,
I was
gotcha.
like, "I guess I do move around." So, but I've been as far as China, you know, for
Oh, okay.
business to Burnaby, Canada, to Toronto, to California, to DC, to Florida,
What were we doing in China?
Seattle. Sully was playing out there. I did his
Oh,
wedding
okay.
last year,
Okay.
and so I went down there, and you know, we just basically talked suits. I did all the fittings here, but I just hung out. We talked about the idea,
Cool,
and I
cool.
stayed for 10 days and seen a Great Wall before I came home. And
That's sweet,
it's
man. That's real
part of
sweet.
work.
Gotcha. And then he did the wedding back here, of
He
course,
did
for
it
the
in Miami.
family.
Yep.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
Miami, even
Yeah.
better.
It
Yeah.
was. Yeah. And I went there too. It was awesome, man. It's the funnest wedding I've ever been to.
Really, really, that's
Oh
cool,
man,
man.
he's just such an authentic guy. Keeps people that are genuine around him, and just one of my favorite people.
That's cool, man. Because I met him one time because he's a decent amount younger than me,
Hmm.
and when I was playing in a league that his brother was playing in, that
Hmm.
Jules was playing in,
Yep.
and he happened to be on the sideline watching the game, and my nephew came to the game with me,
Uh-huh.
and my nephew was like, I'd say maybe 10 at the time, 11,
Hmm.
and I don't know, I can't remember if he mentioned to me, but I think he was kind of just in the zone because I had let him hold my ball, so he's just over there on the sideline trying to dribble it under his legs on the bench, you know, like most hoopers try to do and stuff like that.
Yep.
And but I said something to him when I seen him over there because he was with Boston at the time, and I'm like, "Hey Cam, you know who's over there?" And he's like, "No, who you talking about?" And I tell him, I'm like that's Jared Sullinger over there. He plays for the Celtics,
Hmm.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, it is, whatever." And then he's all pumped. And I was just kind of like just letting him know, you know what I mean, just because I knew it would be cool for him to feel like he's at something, that there's an NBA player there or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did a big post about it because same way like I told you that I've always been like a laid back guy, I've always been the type that I was never the one to approach like
Yeah.
a celebrity or a
Yeah.
sports
It's harder
player.
because everybody does it.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I always felt like there was a weird thing where part of it was some of the somewhat normal thing of like not wanting to inconvenience them or feel like you're doing
Exactly.
something that everybody does and it's kind of
Exactly.
a burden on them. But the other part of it was too like it was weird. I always had some kind of thing like I didn't like approaching people like they were better than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was just a weird like problem within myself. You know what I mean? Because I don't think I should really think like that, and I've kind of evolved since then. But it was just like I didn't like going up to people like I was treating them like a god or treating them like
Right.
just something like I said.
But there's
bigger than me.
opportunities, and I get that too. I think sometimes it's a different space because their lifestyle is very different.
Right.
And so if you're not accustomed to Sometimes their disposition is different because they don't have the same patience because people are engaging all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, what I learned about from being around so many athletes is that it's very similar to you and I, except they're on the opposite end. It's that people are always engaging because they want something. It's not a genuine experience.
Gotcha.
So it's not even that they're not genuine. It's not even that they're not authentic. But it's like people don't want to just talk to them.
Right.
They might want $5.
Or a selfie or
Wear
this.
my shirt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I've been super intentional when like if an athlete doesn't post, I don't always necessarily post things or ask for pictures, because I'm not always about self promotion. I'd rather have the relationship.
And the connection.
I can call them anytime.
For sure.
I don't need the picture. The picture is for everybody else to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll keep working whether people see that or not.
Gotcha.
Right? So I think, like I said, Jared and his family is a perfect example. From his father to all his brothers. They're just all authentic guys. Like I hung out with them and just, not knowing them for several years, like when I was growing up, but like when I met them and had an opportunity to really engage, and I've made suits for all of them, from father to all the brothers, just such a great family, well-rounded family,
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
exactly what I was going to get into, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, is that I was so hesitant, but my nephew just kept asking, and he kept like saying like, "Oh man, you think this?" Now I was like, "You know what, man?" I was like, maybe after the game, or if we get a second or something like that, maybe halftime, whatever, something. I'll think about it, man. Like just chill for now or whatever, something. I just didn't really want to get into it that much. But then eventually, I was like, man, I don't want to be the dude that's shooting him down or telling him it's so horrible to go do, and he doesn't want to go do it on his own because he's just a kid. You know
well,
what I
as
mean?
a kid, you want to create those opportunities.
Right,
So,
right. So I'm just like, all right, man, whatever. We can walk over there or something. And that's what I was gonna say is he was cool as can be about it, man. Like as cool as can be. No big deal about it at all. I think he might even asked him, did he want to take a pic and stuff, which
Yeah.
was even better because it was like that's exactly. I think they kind of said it at the same time. Like my nephew was asking him, and he's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's smiling in the pic, and it's all. I mean, he was cool, and I think he even talked to him for a second or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just like it helped me in that situation too, because then it was like, okay, it gave me a little bit different view too of like what to expect or not to expect something, you know what I mean? And just kind of not look into it so much basically.
Yeah,
But
I
he
mean,
was real cool. He was real cool.
and that's the thing. Like, if my son is around in those situations, because baseball players and all kind of, I make sure he meets them. And if there's
Okay.
a genuine experience, like Brandon Phillips is another client of mine who's been with me for a long time, and like we'll go to the game. He signed a bat.
Plays for the
hung out,
Reds, right? Or
played
did-
for the Reds. Went
did
to the
play for the Reds.
Braves. Won a pennant with Boston last year.
Gotcha.
But just a super, good guy, and so crazy that people are people at the end of the day, and so you don't want anybody calling you every week asking you for anything, and so they can get it off. They'll know when you're genuine or not. But it's just about, like you said, it's just sometimes it's the wrong time.
Right.
You're irritated, they're irritated. And I've met athletes that is like, okay, I seen Jordan in passing and he was kind of in the mood, and I was like, I probably wouldn't speak to him. Everybody's doing that. Ran into T.O. in the elevator, to say what's up to him. But then there's people like Brandon where I was texting him, my son plays baseball, and I'm like, look, man, he's kind of in a, slump to some degree. For some reason, he's not swinging with confidence. That's not my sport. I'm like, what do you think about it? You've bounced around and always been an adamant athlete. And I'm asking a real question from a father's perspective, but I'm like, I have access to people that are elite, and I want to know what your mentality is. And so I'm thinking he's about to text me this long thing. He just like, call me.
Oh,
I was like,
how
all right.
dope is that, man?
So I called him. I go through my spiel, and I'm like, look, I'm not trying to be that dad, but he's super competitive. I want him to do, and he gave me some real great advice, like let him have fun. It's like, but winning is fun. It's a lot more fun when you do something good. So we started talking through that, and then he actually looked at his swing. And by the time I got off the phone, I was like, thanks, Uncle BP. So my
gotcha.
son's smiling, and I'm like, all right, man, I'm about to call. He's like, don't let me have to come down there, so he's just,
okay.
But like I said, they're people. And
Right,
if you
right.
have the opportunity to engage, I think it's just really about the timing and who the athlete is. But most of the people that are extremely successful, to be honest, they're humble. Like the ones that I meet, they're good people.
Yeah, and
there's some exceptions though.
Right,
there's
right,
people
right.
on the other side.
And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some experiences too that ruin people a little bit too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where somebody just
Too
is
trusting.
super rude about it, or or like you said, they've been too trusting and too open to people, and then eventually it bit them. You know what I mean? Because somebody just either being real rude, real crazy, real drunk, real this, whatever, something, and it creates a bad situation. Then from that point forward, they might be a little bit more shielded. You know?
Exactly. But that's all of us though.
Right,
so-
for sure. Even like it even made me think when you talking about the baseball thing with Marcus when he was on here on the last episode.
'Cause he plays baseball
Yep, he
overseas.
plays baseball overseas, and I think he's with a team in Puerto Rico right now, and he was talking, and he got to talking with my producer here, and he's talking about
Puerto
his
Rican
son.
heritage.
Yeah, but also he's just talking about his son playing baseball and things like
Yeah.
that, whatever. And
He lit up.
just like nothing, man, he just comes out and he's telling him like, and by the end of the conversation, after he's already talking about certain things or whatever, he's like, "Oh man, even let me know, maybe we'll throw the pill around from time to time." You know what I mean? Like he'll play catch with him or something. And it just tripped me out that people
Yeah.
are like that.
Yeah.
And then he even when he got into something, he kind of was explaining stuff about like confidence with hitting and stuff because the producer was kind of telling him the same kind of thing, like kind of asking him somewhat. Once he opened up like that, he kind of asked him a little question or said something about something his son was going through at the time or whatever, and he just dove into it and he was just telling him like this and that. And at the time, the same thing like you said, and that's what it reminded me. It's like I jumped in. I was like, oh, I want to know his perspective on this. So I kind of asked him, like, he was talking about like how to get out of a slump or how to the main thing we got into is like avoiding them, like not getting so wrapped up in the moment or scared in the moment or like and just being there and being calm and doing your thing. And I kind of asked him and stuff, and it was real cool. It was real cool. He was just saying like repetition, you know what I mean, and
Memory
just
muscle.
yeah, doing stuff outside of there of like breathing and concentrating and thinking about it and thinking about himself in those situations before he does it. So it turned into a real cool conversation that I had no idea would even go that route, you know what I mean, or he'd step out like that, and it was really cool to see. I feel like it's always cool to see in anybody that's doing something like that
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect, like we're talking
Yeah, I
about.
think you know what I've noticed is when I meet people that I would call elite, like and Sully's one of those people that he's just an elite athlete. I mean, I seen him play a couple of games. Like had the opportunity to see he played against Stephon Marbury when I was there in China. It was
Oh,
his
okay.
last year. But you could just
And
see
he's a
the
god over there.
yeah, oh, he's crazy. But like you can see the level of talent when you have like elite athletes, and they just have this innate ability to lock in. And I feel like it's I mean, some of it's God gifted, like they have an ability, but a lot of it is mentality.
And
And
hard
so,
work.
yeah, so I ask a ton of questions to people that are executive vice presidents or CEOs that run businesses. A lot of my time is really asking questions around, their journey and how did they get there and what does it take to stay. And the people that I feel like are the most successful to me, and obviously you have your own idea of what success is that they're very open to explaining, the depth of, this is where my mind is and this is how I feel. And this is, this
So
is
like
how,
teaching and stuff like that. They're
yeah,
really
they're
open
sharing. I mean,
to
they're
share
sharing at
and
least
teach.
principles,
Right, right.
things that, like I can say now, Sully, he's on me because he wants my business to be successful. And
Okay.
so I'm messaging
Those are
him.
the best friends, man.
He'll message me about something like about my grammar. I swear he's a teacher. Like nobody's going. I'm like, are you serious? This is what you're gonna do? I'm congratulating you and your child, and you're gonna he will. But I know he loves me. That's the only reason why he's doing it.
Gotcha,
He's
yeah.
like, you're CEO. I'm like, yes, not to you. Like,
I tell people all the time, man, I've had conversations like that. Crazy, we might even got into it on the last episode, but I tell people all the time, like, that's the people I want around me. And that's what I tell a lot of people that they should want, you know what I
Right.
mean? Is that the people you should want around you is the ones that are going to tell you and call you out on your stuff, the ones
Yeah.
that aren't going to be afraid to tell you, hey, you need
Honest.
to get it together,
Yeah.
or hey, you could be better at this, or you could change
Oh,
this
yeah.
a little bit. Because the people that are always just going to pat you on the back, or just sit there and listen and not give any feedback, I always feel like, what is that really doing for you?
Yeah, I mean, my closest friends in from business and otherwise are very honest. I have people that they're going to identify what I don't do well, and they're going to continue to push me until they see because they feel like there's more that I can do.
Gotcha.
so, yep.
And even getting more into the travel, it's funny when I was flying one time and I seen I grabbed the magazine and I'm looking at the magazine on the plane, and I'm like, oh man, like hold on a second. I'm like, I know this guy. So I'm like, I'll show my wife and stuff at the time, and really getting into it and telling
American
her like,
Airlines magazine.
yeah,
Yep.
and telling her how I knew you and stuff. I was like, this is real cool, man. This is real cool.
It's so funny because like I don't really tell anybody because I'm not necessarily I've just never been that guy. And my uncle took a picture and sent me. It's like. I was like, maybe they're in the flights that are leaving Columbus. I really didn't get it, right? But it was in every American Airlines.
Oh, really?
international.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
all
yeah,
over
see,
the
because
place.
I saw it flying out of here, so I kind of assumed that
I
as
thought
well.
it was just here. I was like,
Gotcha,
oh, that was
gotcha.
cool. And then I found out it was in every airplane, everywhere for like a
Gotcha.
month. And so I got a ton of like traction and emailing and all kind of stuff. A couple clients from it actually as well. And I had friends that were traveling abroad. Like, oh my gosh, there's one of my classmates in the back of this.
That's so
It was
cool,
pretty
man.
cool.
That's so
and
cool.
it kind of gave my story It was a blessing. So then the crazy part, I was like, you know, that ad did pretty good. How much would that cost? Because it was free for me that time. And I found out for that particular ad that I had would have been $60,000.
And so how did they just approach you off something?
So there was a relationship I had of a person here that does like marketing management,
Okay.
and she just loved my story. Had seen one of my shows. I think it was Highball,
Okay.
and so we had a few conversations, and I met with a bunch of reporters, and they ended up running that story. So it's
Gotcha,
crazy.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. So
yeah. When I
just
seen it in there, man,
organic blessings. That's all I can say. It was cool.
that's dope, man. And it sounds like it's kind of a little bit of what we were already talking about before, and just those connections and how things, just being a good person to other people and helping them out when you can leads to them also helping you and
Absolutely.
spreading the wealth for sure.
Yep.
And I've also seen a number of posts from you and other things talking about being in certain magazines, being in the Dispatch a few times. I've seen segments with you on the news, on different news stations.
Yeah.
That's why I said when we sat down, I'm like, you might be the pro at this. You know what I mean?
Not a
You-
pro,
you-
not a
you-
pro.
The amount of radio spots and television spots that I've seen you do, this is
Nah,
real
it's a
normal
blessing,
for you.
man. I honestly, I've been blessed. I don't necessarily think about it or hold it, tip my hat. I feel like obviously there's a ton of improvement, but I've been blessed to have a lot more organic marketing than me paying for it.
So
So
almost like mouth to mouth and
yeah, majority
word
of
to
all of
mouth,
my
I guess I should
business
say.
has all happened from relationships I've had, and I've not necessarily looked for it. Like there's a client of mine that was on TV, and hey man, I want to do a spotlight on you because you've been getting me right for 7 or 8 years. I mean, it's an easy conversation because I know him.
Gotcha.
And then there were some other things that just organically happened. Like I was on a commercial for Tel Ohio for a while for their business stuff and showing me all the time. And people was like, "Did I see you on TV?" I was like, "Yeah." So it's a blessing, man. Like I said, the opportunity to travel has been great. Like I said, just from going to China, from DC or Florida, and being able to see how fashion translates in those same markets and people really appreciating that talent when I travel. So
Is a
it's a
lot of the
blessing.
travel for some of the athletes and stuff, or has it been a little bit of everything,
So a
like
bit
as
of
far as
everything.
business, just regular business
Yeah,
guys too as well?
wealth managers, lawyers, anybody that's wearing suits that gets exposed to my brand. I'll get an invite, and a lot of times, if I've come once or twice, then I'll start to get a group of people that I'm working with in the area. So
It makes
DC
sense.
is pretty heavy. Like I'm in Cleveland a lot right now. I'm in the
Really?
process of doing some stuff in Cleveland with the store actually collaboration, where
Okay.
I'll be featured in the store with a brand will, as well as like doing some stuff in DC. So yeah, I travel. I do. It's all right. It's good
Yeah,
some
yeah, I mean,
days.
is it tough on you, man?
You know what? There's days that like I'm just ready to come home, and just like do the normal stuff, like hang out, with my son and just chill. But then I'm always like, it's a blessing. And the older I get, the more I find value in the opportunity that I do have to build my business outside of Columbus and, to be able to do my own thing and not really reporting to anyone but myself. So that to me, I
The
just,
gratitude, man. That
yeah, I'm
gratitude.
appreciative.
I've seen you post about that before, and that's something that's huge to me, and especially like the older I get. And it seems like in the past few weeks, especially, but months and few years of my life, like it's just something that rings even more and more true to me. Is like that gratitude is it's so powerful in so many ways because when you can realize the things that are going on in your life and kind of step back from them for a second sometimes and just look at what's going on in your work life or just appreciation of your home or
Yeah.
of your family or
Yep.
just like how you feel good about what you're doing and the person
Yeah.
you're becoming, all those things. Just I feel like that gratitude hits so hard. It makes you feel so much more inspired. It makes you
Yeah.
feel a lot more happier in life when you
Yeah.
can be grateful for things.
Yeah, and I think it's just about sometimes you can be spoiled, and I can't say I was spoiled most of my life. I feel like I've worked hard, but I've been extremely blessed to find myself in opportunities that most people will go their whole life and never
For
experience. So to
sure,
say I
for
was
sure.
doing business and got invited to China or Burnaby or Vancouver or places that were outside of the country, as well as going as far as San Francisco or Seattle or
Yeah, and I'll
like
say it for you because you don't get exactly into it. I mean, working with NBA players, MLB players. I mean,
right.
like I can tell even and talk to you. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but it's even clearer talking to you. You don't go directly at trying to name drop or play. I mean, we've of course discussed names because this
Right,
is what
right,
we're doing. We're telling a story and
right.
we're talking about what you do. But I mean, it's big stuff, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's things that people definitely do not expect to get into growing up and expect to be doing things at that level.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man. Like, going to games and even some relationships of people in the front office. I just had the opportunity, sit in floor seat and not even pay for the ticket,
Yeah.
or just, stuff like that that I can say, like, I really can appreciate. And for me, I don't think that um, I don't get excited because of a name. Like, I'm happy for their success. I'm happy to attach to their success. But my success is really having those relationships that I can always call on. May it be a conversation. Like, I'll talk to, somebody about, man, how do you think about this branding idea? What do you think I could do to expand? Because, you're a great gateway to other players. So what else would you want that I don't provide?
Mm,
So, you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
more of an opportunity instead of just like taking one person and using them, to get to everyone else. It's like, let me improve my brand and how can I do this in a faster manner? How can I service you better? And if not, what's the best way to get recommendations? And, to be honest, I probably need to be asking people for business a lot more, like, hey, you have friends? Because I typically feel like if I do a good job, I won't have to.
Right. I mean, that's
You're
exactly what
walking
I was
billboards.
thinking as you were explaining that, all those details, is thinking like that's probably a lot of times what it is for you. Cause even for you to say from the jump of talking about that first wedding that you did
Hmm.
and that you made it a whole day for him and you gave the red carpet treatment, it was like that right there lets me know that that's the kind of guy that you are, the kind of business that you're giving,
Hmm.
and that the word of mouth of that is what is really
Yep.
your brand and who's and how you're going to get the next connection. Because then when somebody explains to another guy or a friend or whoever, oh yeah, man, Gary really hooked it up and it went like this and he was there and
Hmm.
this happened and he, you know what I mean, the fitting was like this, and
Yep.
I mean the details
Yeah.
and really like putting it out there and letting
Yeah,
that know.
it's a crazy because I had a client. He's been a client of mine for a while. He works for the Cavs organization, and I had a partially ruptured Achilles. I think it's been over a little over a year from hooping, right? Exactly. So,
Yeah, I hear about the pain of that, and
it's the
it's
worst
just the
injury to come
weirdest.
back. It's uncomfortable. It feels like a flat tire. It's a whole bunch of stories I can mention to it. But so I'm in his boot, and so I'm doing. He's been a client for a while, and there's probably 6 or 7 people in the wedding. So I go for the wedding. I'm still in the boot. I'm not in a great position to be necessarily being super mobile, but I have to deliver all these suits. I didn't have an assistant at the time. So I'm there with all these suits, steaming and pressing everything. I'm laying everything out the
Mm,
day of. I'm tying every bow tie. I'm fixing every collar. I'm preparing everybody before everything, all the way up until he walks out. And then what's crazy, somebody messes up a button. So I'm in there sewing a button on before they walk out. And by the time we get to the reception, which I had to walk or catch a Uber to get over there. I'm still in this boot, and so several hours, and I'm swelling up. I had to put my foot up, and to his wife was like, "Go home. I know it's sweat. Like, go relax. You've done, done everything you could because, like, to me, it was so important. He had supported my business for so long, and I'm like, I want to make sure that he has a great day,
mm.
you know. And so everybody, had a great experience. I thought he looked awesome, but people don't know what was going on behind closed doors. Is I was I was hurt. I was, taking Advil. you
Being
know,
Superman out there.
yeah, but that's what it takes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just being able to grit through that because people don't care if you're hurt. I mean, they do, but they don't.
Right, right, right. Was
Um,
that what like one of your biggest
Weddings. Oh,
setbacks and like
well,
learning moments, you know what I
oh no,
mean,
yeah. Last
going through?
year, last year was my biggest learning moment. Was one, I grew up playing basketball and just trying to blow some steam. I had traveled a lot. Had came back from China, went to DC, and then I was like, man, I just need to get back in the gym because I had these stints where I travel so much and I don't do anything. But I'm getting older.
Mhm.
I'll be 40 this year.
Mhm.
So, I'm playing 3 games. They're like, play one more. And I'm like, oh, okay. Jogging. Here's something. Feel like somebody threw something in the back of my foot. Freaking Achilles. So it was a setback because I wasn't necessarily prepared with all the things that do prepare you for that moment. Your Aflac to make sure you're getting what you need to get to
Mm.
support you.
Okay.
And then my business is predicated on my energy, and so I'm normally dependent on myself. I'm not sick a lot. I'm used to working long hours. I'll get up, I pick up the phone, I go meet people. But so it's if I'm not moving, things aren't moving.
Right.
And so I had to learn that, what, you can't do everything. Anything that you do that is going to be impactful, not just to the world, but even to the people you're trying to deliver service, is going to take a team. And
Gotcha.
so it took that situation to really unpack. I've had, different assistants, different people help me at times, but I had to unpack it to say, how can I really be the best at this if I'm not fully equipped to make sure I can focus on the things that I do well.
Mm.
Because I'm not an administrative person, but I still have things to do. You know, I got taxes to file. I got to look at all of this other stuff. I have to look at details. I have to look at fabrics and numbers. And so it's like that's a lot of work. And so I didn't realize how much I was doing until I had an executive administrator come in and like, you do all this. How have you survived this long? And I was like,
Yeah,
what do you mean?
that's what I was gonna ask, man. I mean, so you said you've only kind of like dabbled in having assistants and
I
stuff
had
over the years,
assistance,
or?
but I didn't understand myself enough. Like,
Gotcha.
and the thing about it,
So a
I think,
majority of this time it's been
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, always me. Yeah,
Okay,
they're
so go
all,
ahead. Sorry to
people
interrupt.
talk about Jones Select like it's a team. I'm like, have a great team. Talking about me.
Gotcha. So go.
So when I unpacked it, because you don't know what you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and then I really started to figure out that I'm a person of strong vision. I'm a person that is a creative. I'm a person that advocates for the brand. I love connecting with people. I love, working with people. I love creating concepts from conversations. It's really my wheelhouse.
Okay.
But the administrative part, picking up the phone all the time and securing all my dates and all of that kind of stuff, and managing my calendar and booking the flights and looking at the taxes and and making sure the back end stuff, keeping up receipts and when did you travel, like, so all of these things that are layered. Was this detail correct on this lapel? What's the number? So like all of these things that go into producing a business front to back. And I've had obviously, trial and error in times where I've messed it up because I was doing too much, and it wasn't in my heart or my head, but it was just like, yo, you just have to step back and understand what you're doing. And for me, because I grew up in such a gritty environment, it seemed normal. Just work hard, just work harder, just prove it, just get stronger, just get up earlier, just stay later. And so I started to wear myself out.
I bet. I
So
bet.
yeah, so I had to sit back to say, you're not running this business started with an idea. It started with me just connecting with people and loving suits, and I had a real passion for helping people, and branding is so important for people of every environment. When you walk in and you can get yourself a job, you can create momentum. And there's so many other things that I've been able to do from that, from doing work with the Urban League to people that are coming out of jail, doing workshops, to even people that are executives. And it's still the same thing to me. It's still clothing. It's conversations that you have through textiles, right?
Mm.
So to me, that's my gift. That's the easy part. I can get somebody dressed. It doesn't matter. That part I'm gonna look at in 2 seconds, talk to you, ask more questions. Here's what you need to do. Here's why. Here's what we can do, and go from there. But not understanding that the business has to be run on a foundation. And so I'm more of an executive than I am, the person that needs to do the
Boots on ground. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so now I have an executive assistant. I have somebody that does the back office stuff. And so I'm just now letting go some of those reins, to the point my assistant talked to me like, look, if you're not going to let me handle your whole schedule, like, it's not going to go well. Like, even our appointment today, I sent it to her. It's like, I had a conversation. I'm doing this. I have time. And she, we talked about it this morning. I'm like, yes, I'm going. This is, like, so what is this? Should I need to email him? No, you don't. I'm going. I'm just letting you know. So I'm still learning how to unpack my personality. So I went through a few assistants, probably because I was too much, because nobody's built to do it all. But I didn't understand that about myself. And I
I
wasn't
mean,
trying to,
because you were doing it too, though.
yeah.
That's why
So,
you didn't.
and it's something that started, just from working a third shift job and learning,
And having
for
a
5 or
dream,
6.
making it
Yeah. So you
happen.
don't think about, I'm running a multi-million-dollar business. I'm trying to progress to this point. You just for me, I put my head down. I worked. I wanted to provide for my family. I wanted to ensure up great relationships, put out a good product, have a good name. And so I'm like, hey, these things are working. But then I had to learn the things that weren't working and why. Like, you know what? I'm not this guy.
Gotcha.
I don't do this well. I don't do that well. This is what I do well. So I need to staff everything else so that I can stay the course.
So what kind of staff do you have now?
So now I have an executive assistant.
Okay.
And I have someone else that kind of does what I would call vendor management, that does more on the, like, my relationships with mills and all that kind of stuff. And
Okay.
I've always been a part of like a tailors association. So I have a bunch of relationships there.
Gotcha.
But it's just me not necessarily doing all the day-to-day, worried about where am I supposed to be? Do I have enough time? And so now I had that conversation with my assistant that's going to book my calendar,
Gotcha.
which is huge for me.
Yeah. I can't imagine. You said a few things there that really made me think too as well. So you're saying like that mentality of like, oh, just work harder, just be better, just stay later, just this and that. Where do you think that came from other than, was there any sources, or do you think that was literally just how you grew up and something that you were hearing on the usual, or was it some of your mentors? Was it
I
some
think it's
content you were consuming?
Yeah,
What
I mean, I think it's just the environment. My mom was a hard worker. You know, she worked hard, she worked late, she did what she could to leverage her time. And I think everything around me kind of just, said that. But when I would see the executives, they were decision makers. They're in the room because of how they think, not even what they do. The higher you go up, the less they do.
for sure.
And so I'm seeing this matriculated all the time. Like, oh, okay, you own 10 Wendy's and you're an executive also. How are you doing that? This person's presence in the room is pushing all of these details. They're not in there doing the work. It's not what they're there for. They're there because of what they know. And so I start to see people that are specialists. It's like, you don't really call me for a situation where you just need a regular suit. That's not why you call me.
Hmm.
You call me because you're changing your career. You're upgrading your career. You're an executive trying to make a statement. You're trying to stand out. You're an athlete. You want to, you're ready for some real context for what you're doing. Because I've been doing it so long, it's not that I can't do that, but that's not necessarily what I do.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
And so I had to learn that. And then there's small things like, just people that are in my life now that's helping massage my mind to be in a better place. Like I started going to a place called One Church
Okay.
out in Gehenna, and Greg Ford is the pastor there. He just had a great message about, you know, people that are playing instrument. Like most of us are based on performance, which we'll talk about today. It's like, man, everybody's judging you based on what you do.
Hmm.
And that's how you are as an entrepreneur. It's how you are if you're an athlete. You play the wrong note, somebody's gonna be like, hey, it's terrible. You mess up a suit, I'm like, oh, he's terrible. But he's like, man, you can't just be, that's not what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be just the conduit. You're just, let God take the reins over here and you just be the instrument and be the conduit. And that really helped my mind to think like, you know what, God is really in control ultimately of my life, right? And so you're gonna do a bunch of things in your life and you're supposed to be a conduit. Like you're not supposed to be the person like, I'm not in charge.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't even gotten myself to this point, you know what I mean, on my own. So
I'm always interested in the balance though, because I see it in certain people and other people I don't, and I love hearing it from
people
you.
that jump off a cliff and they're
No,
like,
no, no. I just love hearing it from you, where it's like all that mentality of like work harder, be better. A lot of stuff where you're putting it on yourself,
oh yeah, all day.
but also at the same time saying, "I'm gonna let God do the work" or
Oh, I have
whatever.
to.
Because so what I mean, it's I think for some people they think they would look at that as like that's clashing ideas there, you know what I mean?
Nah,
But I love that you're kind of saying both.
yeah, I massage both. I think there's a point of where you have two hands, so you should work. I don't feel like, God gave us some sort of ability, inclination for us to get up every day. And it's like, God just bless the things that I put my hands to. And there's going to be things where I felt like I had to spend time meditating, and saying like, just give me strength to stay centered, to get my goals accomplished. And then really try. I mean, and honestly, the last 6 or 7 months, I really kind of had some reestablishing in my relationship, with God in general, just because I grew up with it and I went through some things in church and life, and so now I have a lot more focus on to like what my direction is, and so it's a lot clearer for me to say, you know what, I'm going to do a lot of things in my life, but I want to do things that I feel like are going to matter long term.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that I'm setting the precedent for my family,
Hmm.
right? By saying my context comes with my center is Christ. You know what I mean? And then what I do is not who I am.
Okay.
Which is why I never lead with, hey man, I read it. You would never see me do that. Now, some people that are around me will always introduce me as that person because that's who they know me to be. But
Right.
to be honest, my name is Gary Jones. I run a business. I am a father.
I'm not just suit guy.
That's no. Please don't do that to me. If you're hearing this now, don't ever introduce me as that. So it's the last. I mean, it's not that I don't want to talk about it,
Hmm.
but to be honest, it's like that's not who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just a
yeah, yeah.
portion of what I do.
Yeah. Well, and I think those are kind of your best people, man. It's the ones that they don't identify with one thing because they know there's so much more out there and they're wanting to be better every day, better than
Absolutely.
yesterday.
Yeah, and that's all I'm a work in progress.
Yeah, that's how I feel too, man.
Yeah,
That's
so I'm
how I
trying
feel
to
too.
transition from this thing of like being so built on my performance and so worried about it because when you run a business or you create stature, you become a target. People don't talk about that. Is that as a person, I've had people do a ton of things in my business where it came to taping conversations to get my my content to sending people to get information or breaching contracts that we had with each other to start with a competitor.
That's crazy.
People I've helped, yeah, it's a ton of things, but I don't harbor bad feelings. But it puts you in a different space. You know what I mean? And then if my
Learning experiences.
absolutely, but if I base all of what I do based on worried about with these people, the decisions they made, and and allow that to affect my life and how I conduct, creating new relationships, then I'm allowing those things to have power.
I love that, man.
You know,
I love that so much because that's what I preach that a lot to people too, and I try to take that on for myself as well. It's like you you can't control what other people do, and there's gonna be people that are pieces of work, man,
mhm.
and that try to sabotage things or just hate from the outside because they're not where you're at,
They don't understand you, or it's
yeah,
all they
yeah,
know.
yeah. And it doesn't even have to be anything where you're even doing better than them or anything. They can just literally, that's how, some people, that's how they're raised. I had that
Absolutely.
conversation with someone recently. I'm like, sometimes when somebody is coming at you a certain way, it's literally because that's all they know. It's
Hmm.
like when they're at home, mom, dad was always bashing everybody, brothers or sisters, whoever, cousins, whoever they spent their time around, was their thing, that their hobby was sitting around dogging people. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
There's a
It's
lot of people like that.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's just what they do. And I
Yeah,
think, when you get to the point where, if nobody was talking about you, it means you're not making an impact.
for
And
sure.
so for me, I've always been a guy to just stay in my lane and do what I do. And I was that type of athlete. When I played ball, I never ran my mouth until you talked, until you bumped me. Then it's like, oh, okay, we're playing that game. Come check me, right?
Right, right, right.
But in business, I don't think there's really competition, right? To me, you're already living the dream if you run a business and it's providing for yourself, right? Now it's just running your race. That's what it's about. So I run my race. I do my work. I go towards the specific mark that I set for myself, and I don't worry about
Was
others.
there a super cool feeling or something one time, man, when that kind of hit you? You kind of realize like I'm doing my own thing. It's providing for me. I'm
That was
like
the hardest thing for me to
not that you're
swallow.
there, but
Yeah.
that you're on the path to your dream.
I think I was just, because I was so stressed about whatever, like the next meeting I have, I'm like, I'll get a project done and never even sit there and like, I've done this. It is good.
Gotcha.
I'm like, oh, it looks good. Great. I'm thinking about the next project that I'm worried about a deadline. And I'm like, I'm going to, bother my health if people knew the emotions that I go through taking on a wedding. Like, can you imagine Jared Sullinger's
Oh,
wedding is 10? I had to get
people
an assistant to go.
people who don't do stuff with
Oh
weddings or
my
haven't
God.
been around weddings have no idea. And I
Listen.
only know just from watching like my wife through our
Sheesh.
wedding, watching my sister do hers, and then kind of attending a few others where it's like the stress level,
Oh my
especially
gosh.
for the people involved and definitely the women,
Oh yeah.
is just through the roof.
Yes.
And everybody just wants everything to be perfect. I think because so many people have in their mind, as did I, but I kind of still left. I did the thing that helped me a lot was like I'm gonna leave a lot of this to my wife to make decisions. She
Hmm.
says this, we're going with that, cool. She says this, we're going with that,
Exactly.
cool. Like, but there's so many things with so many people wanting that to be so special
Their
and
idea
so
of
perfect,
perfection.
perfection because they think this is the one time.
Yeah.
This is the one time this is gonna
Yeah.
happen. I want these amazing photos, these amazing
Yeah.
this amazing video. I just want it to be the perfect day. Everybody has that idea of perfect in their
Yeah.
head that perfection creates expectation,
Yeah.
which of course expectations it is what causes people to get upset.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think just learning how to massage through those areas, but no one can be more stressed when it comes to like making sure things are right because I am a perfectionist to some degree. So when I see things, I can see a million things wrong. And it's like I can't even tell. Okay, it does look good. So if I say it looks good, it's been through like 50 checks of me. Like if I'm looking on TV and I see a person with the wrong combination, wrong for his skin tone, or I'm like, well, who put him in that? Because it's all I do all day is look at, clothings, fits, designs, meshing things. And so if it passed my test, it's normally okay. But when you have that extra, emphasis because it's a wedding, it's even harder. So I enjoy it, but sometimes it is part of the journey. And so that's what I learned is that you just got to take the good with the indifferent. You just have to persevere. And I feel like I had to, again, just try to get my soundness and my faith together, and then learn how to appreciate the small things because it's like, look, man, I'm in a great moment. I don't want to stress myself out. Having several fittings because I'm worried about it and they might be fine and I'm causing anxiety because I'm trying to be perfect.
Oh,
So,
gotcha. And
or
create
vice
more
versa.
problems on them trying to
Yeah.
schedule it.
So
And
I had to mature, and I'm still maturing in my business where I'm learning to speed up. You have to slow down, right? And so it's not that I'm above it. It's not that I feel like I've arrived at this point, but it's like I'm going to appreciate the moment I'm in. I'm going to embrace the clients I do have. I'm not going to worry about the ones I lost. I'm going to embrace the ones that are coming because I'm more prepared from the things that I've learned.
gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. It's a cool mindset. It's a cool mentality and a way to look at it, man. And those situations are so high
Oh my gosh, man.
tense and stress, and
You
I
don't even
can't
want to
imagine.
know. I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
to send a suit to Aruba one time, like
Oh,
retarded.
okay.
It's retarded. Like I don't even want to. It was
So,
retarded.
what percentage of your business is weddings?
You know what? It's a good percentage to be
Really?
honest. It's probably like my guess is 30%.
So I asked because it's like, okay, so then that's what percentage is
I mean, summertime.
extremely hectic.
Yeah, like summertime right now is really weddings. There's a lot of weddings going on right now. Like I
Gotcha.
just did 4. Like I got,
Mm,
one I gotta go back to do the last fitting, but and it's not as stressful when you have time or the first fitting goes well, you're like fine.
okay.
But it's just people can be people,
Yeah.
right? So it is what it is, and every business has its nuance. But when you're dealing with something custom and like, those are things you have to learn how to manage. But it's a good portion of
It's
business.
funny too that you say that. It reminds me of something I was kind of going to ask you earlier when you were mentioning it when you were talking about like the fitting of the suits and the Steve Harvey suits and all that. So uh, we even talked about it a little bit on the podcast that I did with Customato the barber because he was
Oh,
saying
okay.
like talking about you have people that are going to come to you and kind of give you their idea of what they think they want, but you kind of in a way are like, I don't think you really know what you want,
Exactly.
or you're like, you might want that, but I'm gonna try to maybe steer you a little bit this way
Exactly.
or give you a
Hmm.
little
Yeah.
shove in this direction because
Yeah.
you don't really know what that's gonna do. That
Exactly.
might be a little too snug for you. This might be the, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you have to find a way to massage that in.
Gotcha,
But the
gotcha.
hard part is that some people come in and they feel like they're already an expert and they don't give you the platform to really
Mm,
interject. They don't think about how many looks you've looked at, how many weddings you've done, how long have you been doing business, and what your motivation is. But it's like once you get into the conversation, because everybody's a suit expert, right? They've read everything online and they're like, they come in the office and I'm like, oh, okay. You know what? So the canvas, and this is true they spoke, and I'm like, right. Because you said it that way doesn't mean you understand it, right?
gotcha,
You know
gotcha.
that'll be 12 grand if you want that, right? So it's like, but the thing I appreciate is when people can appreciate what you've been through and who you are and the fact that you're still there and can ask you for like your professional opinion because that's what it is. When you spend that many hours and years doing something, you can really execute on a certain level and give them something that will be amazing and fitting if you can really just get that great chemistry and connection with the person
Gotcha.
you're working
That's
with.
exactly one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on the podcast, man, is because since I kind of met you early on,
Hmm.
I should say early on to me
Yeah,
knowing the
it's still
fashion
early
scene,
on.
but still early on in your
Yeah.
business as well, to see how many years you've been doing it and
Hmm.
see the progression and
Hmm.
see the bigger clientele and see that you're still at it and I've even seen like the suits get better
Hmm.
and things like that. And it's like to me, I respect that like crazy. So I that's a perfect example of like why I wanted to bring you on and I'm sure that as well as probably bringing you clientele and stuff at times because
Yeah.
they see like this guy is very experienced in the
Yeah.
game, serious,
Yep.
has the years in, has it, and
Hmm.
it probably is hard, I'm sure, for you at times when someone comes in and thinks they're an expert on it or is going to
Hmm.
tell you like this or
Yeah.
maybe even I'm sure there's people that even argue with you from time to time to a degree
Hmm.
on a certain fit or fabric or whatever. I mean, you tell me that that's your side of things, but I think a lot about it because when I went and got mine done for my
Hmm.
wedding, and I didn't even think of you not to
Nah.
even know whether or not I was in your price. You were in my price range or whatever,
Right.
but when I had mine done, it was kind of a little bit of a learning experience for those
Hmm.
reasons too. Like I just didn't know exactly, and I remember the one thing that I was kind of getting caught up on is like at the ankles, wanting it to kind of like taper down and not be too big at the ankle.
Hmm.
And I was trying to explain that to them, like, and it's hard, especially if you have any kind of muscle in your legs
Hmm.
or any type of athletic build. And that's
Hmm.
something that also it made me think about to even ask you about because you work with so many athletes.
Hmm.
Is how do they go about doing that? And because I was trying to explain that to the lady that was working on mine,
Hmm.
and it was just like she wasn't quite getting it. And even as she tried more to make different
It's lost in
alterations.
translation. Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is typically you're going to taper from the knee down.
Mm-hmm.
like an inch and a half to kind of get to a more trendy fit, especially if you're going for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the athletes like hockey players, big thighs, and athletes are typically slender because they run a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball players are pretty normal sized guys for the most part. Football players are abnormal. They're
Right.
always super
Huge.
muscular.
Mm-hmm.
So huge thighs, huge backs. So those are a little bit different. I think the fit is always going to be based on conversation, body type, and then really overall giving you a canvas to say, here's where I'll start you at. We can always taper it in a little bit. So I think, the learning curve, to be honest, is not that like everything I say is right. It's just that my process of elimination is going to be different, because I'm going to understand where you want to be based on your conversation. Because you could look at a picture, you're a slimmer guy, you might be like, oh, Calvin Klein model, I can wear this. And you probably could, right? But there's going to be nuances about you. Maybe it's your height or things that you find issues with when you buy things off the rack or you experience when you go to stores, and you're trying to get this fit, but you're trying to figure out how it happened.
Mm.
And so there is a blend of having the right fabric, right? The right color, and the right style. And
Okay.
so those are three things that I would approach, if I'm making that direction. And then you obviously got to have the budget to get it done too. And it doesn't mean you can't go off the rack and find things depending on your size, but you still want to make sure that they're touched by the right person that will facilitate and give you exactly the style and look that fits you.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes a lot of
It's a long
sense, man.
answer.
No, no, I like it, man. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of good information from that. It was just weird to me going to her and like trying to explain that, and she was just almost like trying to argue
She
that
was
or
probably
trying.
a traditional tailor. So the thing is that a traditional tailor, they're going to think about room. So they're
Mm,
not a trendy people. And if they're, around like numbers or style, they've been doing it a long time. And when it trends that way, it's going to be too tight and they're going to think about something splitting.
oh, okay.
Because the closer those things get, they're not necessarily made to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
You're cutting into that pattern, especially if you're
Oh,
a
okay.
bigger thigh,
That makes a lot of
then you
sense.
don't have the same room. And
Mm.
here's the other thing that happens when things are tight is they're gonna wear out. So even if you have thighs, you're gonna wear through your pants a little bit, even if they're really wool, just because you have thighs and legs and they're gonna rub all the time.
Gotcha,
Whereas your jacket
gotcha.
will last a lot longer. So a lot of my clients will get multiple pair of pants. And the reason why you even extend the wardrobe is about wearability versus style.
Mm.
So even when you invest into custom clothing or clothing that are going to be good clothing, you want things that have the versatility, like the versatility that you can wear. Gray and blue are probably my two favorite, right? Because you can wear any color shoe with them.
Okay.
You wear black, it's a dominant color. Can you wear oxblood? Yes, but it's a dominant color. It's dominant. Nighttime, maybe, I wouldn't wear it to an interview. You can, it's fine. But it's like if you put that black suit in rotation, how many color shirts can you wear with that without it looking somewhat cheesy, even from a modern perspective?
Gotcha.
But if you wear gray or blue, you have versatility. You can wear so many different options with it. So it's just about perspective and purchasing things that are more timeless. And so you get people that get into the industry and they're H&M, not to crack on them, but I mean, they're just people that H&M and they, the expression generation to some of the millennials. And so some of that stuff is not timeless. It's trendy. It's not for you to have forever. And so, people that go to Just Vet Banks, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's never been built for you to wear for a long time.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense, and I mean, it's new to me, but it makes a ton of sense on you saying that, and someone coming from the place that you're coming from with the knowledge that you have
Mm-hmm.
to that someone wouldn't think about on our end as a customer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So explain to me also too, what's the process like? Say someone hits you up today. You know what I mean? And what's the process like? So
So
they hit you up and say, "Hey, Gary, I need a suit," or Mr. Jones,
yeah,
as they called you when you threw in your first one.
exactly.
Mr. Jones, I need a suit.
Right. So basically, I mean, the website is the best way, or email is the best way. I'm actually building an automation site, so to kind of take you through a process through videos to kind of get you prepared before you come in.
So, okay, to kind of have an idea of how it's going to go.
Yeah, so it'll be video introduction and then it'll be some questions that you'll fill out. And the reason why I ask questions is like, is there a date that's important? Where do you typically shop? And the reason why those are important is because I can start eliminating fabrics and opportunities, because if you come in and you're used to going to Saks, that's a different suit than Nordstrom's. Nordstrom suit is a different than Macy's. And so a few questions on the front end to say, hey, what are you looking for as a date? You just want to get more information. You want to see my portfolio. And then from there, you'll get your, I'll understand exactly how to place you. And maybe we'll have a 15-minute phone call, or you'll come into the office for your fitting because you're ready to go and you understand exactly what you're doing. And so when I sit down, I'll have at least a good understanding of where you're coming from, what your budget may be, or at least what you're used to spending. And so then I can say, hey, here's your options, and you can pick from this.
Gotcha. And so is there a wide range of customers that you have that like want to go crazy with, I mean, I imagine for sure with the athletes and stuff that you
Mhm.
have all the way down to maybe the regular businessman or like you said, someone trying to change a career. Do you get a pretty wide range of budgets that come to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some people that don't necessarily, they don't say they don't have any, but to be honest, people that are fluent, they still have a budget and they
Hmm.
still have a range that they like to be in. People are not just paying an exorbitant amount of money just because they can. They want to find value, and that's the thing that I feel like I exchange is that no matter where you purchase with me is, I mean, there's a difference at the top end. I'm just gonna tell you, um, but you still want value and feel like your things fit well. You want to feel like it's going to do well. But yes, I do deal with people in different price range, and then I help them with that process because if they're not quite ready for that full out custom or a bespoke suit or something that's in that high end, I'll give you an education and say this is where my starters are, and then I kind of work with whoever wherever your budget is.
Gotcha. That's real cool, man. And something I always thought about over the years, and then especially with doing this one to ask you about too. So do you have an office location or
Yep.
okay, where's
Yeah, I've
that
had
at?
an
And
office for probably 8 years. So right
okay.
now I'm on State Street, and State Street 214 East State Street. So
Gotcha,
I'm right
because
there.
I thought about, sorry to interrupt,
Nah, go
but
ahead.
I had just thought about like your thing is very mobile in a way, you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
you even talking about traveling and it's something that
Yes.
can very easily, I shouldn't say easily, maybe it's easily
Yeah.
done on the road or on location or things like that.
Yeah, doing
So,
fittings and carrying fabrics. Yeah. So I'll do some of that, but I mean, now a lot of it is if they're in the downtown area, most times people will come to me. Now, obviously, there's some benefits to me coming to the home. If you're a person really looking to kind of rebrand and stuff, because I can go through, pick out, look at what you wear,
oh,
and
okay.
figure out a ton of information there. But that's more of a different long term appointment than it is. I just need a suit. This is for a specific reason. Then more than likely you're going to come to the office during some hours that I'll select or that's most convenient. I have appointments from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. just depending on the week and availability.
Gotcha. Have you noticed a lot of boost in it with your business stuff since with the growth in Columbus over these years? Because I feel like the years that you've been in business are like the kind of the biggest boom in
Yeah,
Columbus.
there's a ton of like people that have started in the industry that started coming to the industry because we started being looked at as a fashion capital in the
Hmm.
top three, and so there is a boost with understanding because when I started, there's still a lack of awareness of real style. What I will say is people have an approach, and just like everybody does, to get into the business to really push, so many different products on people that are probably more trendy. And for me, because I've learned from classic tailors, and I understand the longevity, and it's more about quality over quantity, that I'll never push the fashion trend. It's not that I don't do it, I don't have it, or I don't execute it. But when you're going to make an investment, you want to be able to wear that at will, whether you're going to work, you're going to dinner, you're going to a wedding, versus that fashion blazer that you can only wear and everybody's going to remember it. So it's just, yeah, so I definitely see some increase, but I think the awareness needs to happen a little bit more as to why.
Okay.
Because I think that there's a lack of context. Now, a lot of my clients are educated and they turn into monsters where it's like, you remember when you couldn't dress, and now
Gotcha.
their
Yeah.
closet is crazy and they talk reckless to me now. And I'm like, I taught you though, it's funny. So,
Well, and it's funny that what you say too, because it's something I thought a lot about as I've gotten older, and I've done the thing of getting fitted for a suit and just wearing everyday clothes or something that you're wearing to that's kind of somewhat business casual, whatever. The difference I think, and you tell me because you're the guy to really say, but it's like once you get to the point that it looks good and it's functional.
hmm
To me, that seems to be like the biggest difference. So like I even see that, like I can see that now
hmm
when I'm looking at like a certain ad or looking at someone, even that someone is real into fashion on
hmm
say Instagram or whatever.
hmm
It's like when you see that not only it looks amazing, but they
hmm
legit look comfortable or they
yes.
can move a certain way, bend a certain way, sit a certain way, like whatever.
hmm
That's when I'm really like, okay, that's a game changer because I've tried to wear something like that you keep saying and labeling as trendy.
hmm
Makes perfect sense. And it's like
It's
it's
not built for a long time.
uncomfortable or yeah, or it doesn't last or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it fits this week, it
It's for
doesn't
a
fit the
trend.
yeah,
It's
and
for a season. It's
it
not a long term purchase. So, yeah, I agree. I think that what you're saying is right. It's just about you. That there is. It's almost like having a good barber.
mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a good, whether it's a personal tailor to do just basic alterations, or you're looking for somebody to really help you with your brand and style, and anybody that's doing front facing, like you're talking to customers or expanding your brand, or somebody that's in front of the camera, You're looking to progress your career. You want to be comfortable. You like clothes, you buy clothes, or you just want that advice. It's really about finding the right person that can attach your brand and really listen to you, to give you feedback to say, look, this will be comfortable. This will marry your style. Here's the colors that'll work because of your skin tones, your eye color, your shoe selection. So, and you have, like, again, just somebody that can help massage you through
Gotcha,
those
gotcha.
decisions.
It makes sense, man. Like I said, I experienced it so much firsthand with the suit I got for my wedding, with
Hmm.
random other fits and looks and things that I bought off the rack, out of stores, whatever. It's like you don't know until you're sometimes in the moment, and
Yeah.
it's like, this is terrible. This doesn't fit right. This is
What
uncomfortable.
was I
This,
thinking? There's so
yeah,
many
yeah.
clothing people that have donated clothing to, my nonprofit aspect of just kind of sending clothes that I help, donate to people. And they're like, man, what was I thinking when I bought this? I'm like, it's fine. You were trendy. But the thing is about fashion, it always changes. Like, that's the portion of it. So there's not going to be one thing that'll stay, but it's something that'll be classy whenever you wear it. But even the timeless stuff, it's going to wear out to some degree, or the shoulders are going to change. Like the American silhouette, the shoulder looks different than a European silhouette. And the shoulder, from a rope shoulder to a standard shoulder, there's just so many different things that are going to change from, now you're just doing the oversized jackets now, and the oversized
Oh,
pants.
really?
Right. So, but that won't hit us for years, not in Ohio at least. Um, but I say that to say, there's no sense in chasing that if you don't have disposable income. It's really, to me, it's about strategically getting the things that will put you in a space that you feel like your leadership. What is the top person at your job wear, right? And then how can you mimic that to some degree, but through your own personal brand? And how can you start a conversation with that person, go to golf with that person, so that they look at you as a peer. And what that'll do is help excel your career. Because a lot of people move forward through relationship more than they do their resumes, right? And so being personable, having those small nuances to start conversations are extremely important for people to understand how do you get there. And a lot of it is just being personable, and people just like you. Everybody can apply for the job, but you know what? That's my friend.
Right, right.
He will work fine with us. We could golf with him.
Gotcha, gotcha. And even like a lot of stuff you say makes me think of that quote they always say about like dressing for the job you want, not for the job you
Absolutely.
have.
Firm believer in that.
Gotcha, gotcha. I mean, I see it in someone like you and a lot of other people that are dressed apart. And I even saw it at my job a few years back where I saw a guy come in that I didn't necessarily feel like he maybe knew everything they need to know,
Oh no.
but he dressed a certain way, spoke a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I
Confidence.
and it, yeah, and it just made sense. Like, I'm not knocking him at all. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that is a slight knock, but at the same time, it was just real. I'm just being real.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it was clear that he had presented himself
Yeah.
in a certain way into that position. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I mean, and the thing is that, because I'm in different rooms, whether it's athletes or executives, I can't dress the same way when I walk in a room.
Mm,
When I go to a locker room, I have to be in a space where now these guys are a lot younger than me. So they're gonna want that. If it's not fitting tight, they're like, yeah, man, I want it, but I need it slimmer than that.
oh,
So
okay.
I mean, you kind of have to come in a way that is age appropriate, that is, appropriate for the demographic that you're going after. And if I go to a law office and I'm wearing a suit that I wear in the locker room, they might be like, hey, man, I want a suit, but I don't want it to look like that. So, for all of us, it's imperative with how we start the conversation or how people engage, because people see you before they hear you. And it doesn't mean that it negates your skill level. But like you said, sometimes you can get in the head of the room, just because you understand things. What's understood need not be explained.
Right, right. And
And
the vibe
so,
you're giving off.
absolutely, because most people, when they dress a certain way, they feel a certain way.
Yeah. Oh, that's something I've always been big on. Like, even coming from sports stuff, I don't know about you, but when
Yeah.
I played ball and stuff, I always like to like have if I had a big game coming up or whatever the case, or playing in a tournament or whatever the thing, I always wanted my hair cut,
Hmm.
something clean on, stuff like that. And it made a big difference because I feel like that confidence, that just little boost of confidence of looking good also gives you confidence in
Yeah.
other areas.
Deion said it best. You look good, you feel good, you play good,
Right,
right?
right,
So
right.
I agree, and I've done a lot of work with the Urban League, helped them build out My Brother's Closet, which, donates to over 400 men, per year, easily. And so what it is people that are coming from either incarceration or looking for a job, and they're trying to really kind of change the momentum of their life. And I've seen people that, maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable talking to in the street because of maybe their aesthetics and how they're dressed, or,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
just their scowl, even how they feel about themselves. It's maybe that they're not a good person. Everybody's made bad decisions, but by changing their clothes, you wouldn't believe the dynamic of how the
Really?
experience is. It's amazing. Smiling, cheesing, I just posted a video not long, and these are people that, are going through tough times and maybe never even wore a suit.
Mm-hmm.
And they wear a suit and they're smiling now. Their whole disposition and momentum is feeling different. And I'll tell them, I'm like, hey man, go in the hallway. And I bet a woman gonna smile at you now. Because they do. They're like, oh man, in a suit. Where are you going? What you doing? And give them great advice about how you can start to just kind of move the needle to the next level. So I think it is something that we don't take for granted. I think that we shouldn't take that aesthetic for granted. So I think you have to have some thought process in what you're putting on.
For sure, for sure. And mindset is so big, man. Mindset is so big. I saw something one time where you talked about it, and I was like, I can't even imagine what this feels like too. You said talking about somebody showing up to either get a suit from you or just if you go to another event or a fitting, who knows what the situation would be, but and someone shows up in a suit when you're not expecting it, but shows up in one of your suits.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling has to be awesome. Like,
oh man, it's an amazing feeling. I remember I did a show with like the young professionals, the Columbus Young
mm-hmm.
Professionals, and it was my first time seeing my logo on like a backdrop.
Oh, okay.
Or like when I seen my logo on TV, like I just did a segment and it was like segment brought to you by Jones Select. Like that's so crazy. Or people were like, man, I didn't actually realize that like you were Jones Select. I was like, yes, he and I are the same. It's different. It's like I raised a kid and you actually have your own thing now. So,
right.
yeah. So, I think the amazing feeling is that, when you think you have an idea, it is a fulfilling feeling, even though I'm not where I necessarily feel like I want to be, but I can be in a place of appreciation and value to say, man, I remember when this idea, when I started in this, area near near Independence, with the gravel was broken up to get to me, or, how many times I've moved. And all of that kind of stuff. So it was so amazing to be able to kind of have that journey. And even now when I get that call or, I see that printed ad or somebody's like, man, I heard about Jones Select. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And it's a whole entity. I sat down, I had lunch with somebody I go to church with, and he was like, yeah, I've heard of Jones Select. I didn't realize that was you. I was like, yeah, because I don't go to church and like I wear everything but a suit there.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, I'm in sneakers. So,
oh, okay. Gotcha.
Jeans and fitted t-shirt. Like,
gotcha.
I'm not here for anything else. So.
But the word?
I love it. Yeah, I don't have to go there and be anything. So,
Jermaine that came on that you said as well. Jay Work.
Yeah.
He always posts that he goes in his gym clothes and hits the gym like either right before or right after. But I've always thought that's kind of a cool thing, you know what I mean, where someone feels like they don't have to go put on a show there and they're there for a specific reason.
Yeah, man, I need the nourishment of the word, and that I need that living word. I'm not there to be a business owner or to politic and to get the next customer. If I do my job when I leave there, that won't be a problem, but I definitely don't go to market my business at all.
Gotcha, that's dope, man. And it's just cool, like I said, in general, for me to hear that about people and know, and I think about with you, like it has to be a moment where I guess in some ways you probably take any opportunity you can get to go somewhere and not be in a suit.
Listen,
too.
You have no idea. So, it's people that they're like, dude, I did not recognize you without a suit. You have a t-shirt on.
Walk right
yes,
past you.
I own a t-shirt.
Who's that guy in the white
man,
tee?
Absolutely. So, but it's such a hard habit to break because I had to kind of build my brand off of like everybody sees me and they think of my brand.
Oh, okay.
And so,
but that's good though, man. That's good.
It's an awesome thing.
I know it has to be tough, and I hate to like either interrupt you, but also talk in a different direction. But it's like with my guy here, my producer Luis, and other people I've talked to, that's something a lot of people struggle with. And the fact that you kind of have it hand in hand, like off the jump, is kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
It kind of is, man, because I've seen you start to get more active on social and do more posting and more stuff, trying to build that brand and your personal brand and show yourself and things like that, and get in a little more into the details. And I think it's going to even more just bring better attention, bring you more business, do all the things that you wanted to do, because you also have from the jump that mindset to where a lot of people, when we get into that, people have no idea who we are, and then we're trying to say, hey, this is who I am. I'm this brand.
Right.
You're that brand already, man.
So a lot of times I appreciate it. Like a lot of people don't realize the content that I really share with my clients, like, and that's really my brand. So I just was like, it's probably time to start talking more. And it's not like I've never done it, because obviously I've had some like print stuff, but it's like I don't make it synonymous because I've never wanted to necessarily be that guy, even though I am that person. It's like I love the opportunity to disengage, when I'm away and just kind of have fun. Like a lot of times I don't go out in a ton of public events all the time because I'll end up working. Because I'll see friends or clients and everybody wants to talk about the business
and recommend you or just talk about
like,
it. Gotcha.
Do you know my guy? Which is great because it leads to business. So I'm not going to say no, but
Can be exhausting.
Yeah, sometimes that means I'm never off. So
Mm.
if I'm hanging out to
Makes
relax,
a ton of sense, man.
yeah, so
Makes
then
a
I'll
ton
stay
of
at
sense.
place like little unique places where I could just relax and try to decompress because I'm always worried about who am I connecting with, how am I going to further my business, but how am I going to do it in a unique way that is me? Because I've always been a person that I keep to myself. I know if I know you and we speak or I met you, I'll never forget a face. I always engage, and I genuinely love people. But it's like, I'm not trying to just sell this guy a suit. Like, even if I meet a guy that I know has a bunch of money, it doesn't mean he's a great client for me. All money's not good money.
For sure.
So it's just one of those things that I'm still learning to embrace, and some of the things that I go through personally of like, okay, it's okay to be the person in the front. You've been that person anyway. It's time for you to embrace that because if people hear exactly who I am, it's going to distinguish me more with me just being me. And that's been a situation in every instance where, I was like, I did something for the Golden Glove Awards for all of Rawlings baseball at one point, where it was like 5 or 6, like 2 or 3 legends and some other current players. And, I met the guys and then end up cultivating, more relationships, doing some more work for some of them. Some of them I didn't. But it was like me just being me. I met them already in the room. I'm like, hey, it'd be great to work with you. Some guys walk by, but I'm gonna speak to you in general. Like when I met T.O., I didn't try to sell him a suit. I just said, "What's up?"
Okay. Yeah.
And if you engage and you act like you actually like you want to engage, then yeah, what's good. And if he asks a question, then I'm actually like, yeah, I'm down here actually working.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But if he didn't, which he didn't, I was like, all right, just
Cool.
like I would anybody else.
Right. Nice to meet you. Cool.
Yeah.
That's dope,
And
man.
if I do my job, I might be in the same word. You like, yeah, I remember I met you.
Yeah.
And it might be that time. Who
Right.
knows?
Right. And it might be on a totally different avenue that it
Absolutely.
comes to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That makes sense,
I
man.
just believe in sowing seeds, man. I believe in giving to people when you can. I believe in just being authentic. And so I
Gotcha.
work on me more than anything.
That's dope, man. That's how I feel all the time. As I'm always like preaching that and trying to tell myself like I am real big lately on trying to tell myself like, man, what do I need to call myself out on? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not only do I, like I said, want the friends around me that are going to call me out
Yeah.
on stuff, but I also now I'm trying to do whatever I can to randomly be like, just take a few minutes and be like, man, what can I really think about stuff that I can be doing better right now?
Yeah.
I could be.
And sometimes you got to take a risk. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to. Like, I remember I met an athlete that was playing in a big three. I was in Seattle. He just played a game. And he's just walking in the streets. And I was walking too. And I was like, hey, man, what's up? I want sneakers. And one of the random, right? Never find me in awe. First of all, it was Jordan stuff, right? Which is like the only one I ever owned. I owned 2 Jordans in my life. So
Gotcha.
brand new sneaks, I'm all jade out. I'm like, hey man, what's up, man? I just seen your game. And I was like, authentic dude. He's like, man, appreciate it. I was like, you played a good game. I was like, look, give you my card, man. If you ever need a suit, would love to, I was like, I run a business and would love to connect with you sometime. Just being me. Like I was gonna do that if I met somebody I felt like would be a good client. He's like, you got a card? Yep, gave him a card. Didn't think that it. Follow him on social. Last week, randomly hit him up. Was like thinking he was about to play. He was like, I actually retired, but I need some suits.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if he remembered me, but I was like, look, we met each other. Would love to connect. And I was just being as normal. I wasn't on here like, I'm about to give you anything. And he was like, I'll hit you back in a month. More than likely, I'm going to do a suit for him.
That's dope, man.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's me being me. I'm not out here like, everybody don't need my suit. I'm going to be honest with you.
Right. That's good. I mean, at the same time, I mean, I was like, I hear people too say, like, even when Cuts was on here, man, he was talking about like, I don't know if I could do any more business right now, and I don't know if that's the case with you. That's not what I'm saying, but it like you said too, I think some of that happens too. That a certain type of way for you to say not everybody needs my suit or whatever. So it's like you can't handle everybody at the same
No, I
time
can't. And I'm
as
looking for a
well.
specific client. I'm looking
Right.
for the person that can appreciate and value me. The
I'm
money is the
yeah.
after thing. If I tell you my suit is $5,000, you're like, gee, go ahead, man, let's get it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because my value is worth way more.
Yeah.
So that's what you really look for. And obviously, ideally, everybody's in that situation. You just need to get that business. I get it.
Right.
But the more I learn is that the connectivity and the understanding and the appreciation and value is on a whole nother level when they just appreciate you. I delivered a suit today, and I won't mention the person or the sex because it'll give away my next move. But
Okay.
they were super excited. And I was like, I've been talking about this for months. And so that gave me more fulfillment than like taking that snap and sharing it with the world because they're going home with that experience, which I'm sure will be shared soon.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, that's the fulfillment.
Yeah. And it's funny too, even with you talking about price and stuff like that, it's Me and him have had my guy Luis have had a lot of conversations about that, and I've said it to other people as well, where it's like they say if someone has never came at you and said your price is too high, then you're not charging enough, and it's like a lot of people
I'm sure
are.
I don't.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people always they say almost everyone is almost always undervaluing themselves, and you'll have your people say, "Oh, he's crazy," or "He charges this much," or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like you don't know the industry, you don't know the business, and
I had somebody do that to me in Cleveland. I was doing a wedding, and he was like, "Is that all?" I was like, "I'm sure I blew it." But for me, it's never been about how much I make,
gotcha.
how much I'm making. Like, I
It's
mean, I
still a
know
little. It was
I was
still a
like,
little knife. It was still a
oh,
little knife.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm giving you all this price for $9.99. It's like, oh my god. So, but it's like if he feels good, he'll come back. And we had a really good dynamic conversation. And so, and I learned. I'm still growing. I definitely don't have it figured out. So.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, real quick too, who are some of the people you draw inspiration and stuff from now, man? Who's your people that really get you going, or that you like to follow or hear what they're putting out, or even if it's people around you or on social?
Yeah, so I always I like Tom Ford's collection. He's probably been one of my biggest inspirations from afar.
Mm-hmm.
He is I don't know if
Yeah, I
the
know who
top
Tom Ford is.
designer,
Yep.
but like I've been to his store
Oh, really?
in Vegas and like tried on his clothes and stuff, and like his attention to detail is immaculate. His suiting, and his process, like, and his I'm not like a guy that just enjoys like necessarily women things. I know what I like to see my woman in. I can give some advice, but it's not my thing. But his women's collection was crazy. Like I seen a dress for 12,500 in there. It was ridiculous. So I mean, he's from top to bottom. He started in fragrances and grew from there and went
Oh, I
into
didn't know that.
shoes, accessories. But his store is just like it's just an amazing luxurious experience. So from a clothing perspective, he's a person that I look at, and I always look at like people that are commentators on sports to see what they're wearing. It doesn't necessarily inspire me. Sometimes it makes me angry. Like, why isn't that my stuff? Who
Gotcha.
put you in that? But I'm
It's
like, I
understandable.
would have done it different. But like people that inspire me, I would say,
Like even on the business side,
but there's a few people. So Gary Vanderchuck is a guy that
it's
I
my
listen
guy. He
to.
comes up almost every episode
I
here.
met him for the combine this year when I was down in Indianapolis. Super cool guy. Talked to
Oh,
him
that's what's
briefly.
up, man.
And then there's another guy named Brandon Williams or B Wills, who is a stylist in LA, but he's like a little brother to me. Grew up.
Okay.
His dad was my mentor growing up, and now he's fitting all the stars. He's from Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, really? Oh,
And
yeah, 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 yeah. Brand Willis. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I know
so
exactly what you're talking about.
Brand Wills
It's
is
funny. I put him down as like kind of like a goal person to bring on here.
yeah, so that's my dude.
Yeah,
So it's
because
like
I know he I think he grew up over here on the west side for a little while.
yeah, his family house is right around the corner.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, his dad was my mentor. So
Oh,
it's
gotcha,
like my
gotcha,
little brother.
gotcha.
So we still talk. I mean,
Okay.
but the reason why he inspires me is because I remember we were talking before he even started in that direction. And so like for a person that was that close of like he's literally like a little brother to me. Went to his basketball games and like took him around. Him and he has a twin brother. So
Oh, never knew that either.
yep. So who actually is a minister. And so like his brother Brian was a basketball player, really good basketball player, and I gave him his first ball. And then
Okay.
Brandon was like more into creatives, and so I made him his first skates. So they were literally, several years behind me. So just cool to see people that excel. And like I think he's the greatest just because he's in the space, he's doing well, he's creating for himself. And I'm a fan, and I believe in supporting people that are from where you're from. And I believe in just like, he'll be like, you're doing too much when I call him to go. I'm like, dude, you could be my goat,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just because, and it may not be that I love every look he does because like he has such a creative palette and I think he's a master in his space. And it doesn't mean I love everything. It's just, I can appreciate where he's come from.
Oh, for sure. He's
Yeah.
doing such big things,
And I
man.
just love it, and it's not about, it's just about impact. And because I know who he is as a person, and to see how much he's grown and what he's continuing to do in the conversations that we have, I can appreciate him. So him, Gary Vaynerchuk, actually Greg Ford, over at One Church, he's doing a phenomenal job, very innovative in his approach. It's helped me tremendously just to kind of
Like a new way
repurpose
of
some
thinking.
things. Yeah, it just really helped me to have some practicality to my thoughts and organize them in an efficient manager through theology. And so I appreciate him. He's definitely been a huge inspiration here recently. And so him and who's my other guy that I listen to, Eric Thomas,
Yeah,
ET.
yeah. Yep.
So ET
Yeah.
is a
Super
huge guy.
motivational.
Yeah, easy to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Vaynerchuk, easy to listen to. But those are probably gonna be my top 5 people that I always check their social. I'm always looking at what they're doing, and they'll give me energy. Just
Yeah,
like,
so real, so positive, so like about people and doing
yeah,
the right things, but also hustling and no excuses. And a lot of
yep.
the things that you've been on here saying, a lot of things that are big to me as well. And
Hmm.
even like with Brandon Willis, like you were talking about too, it's like it's funny. I don't even know how I came
Williams.
across him, or
Hmm.
Williams, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't even know how I came across him
Yeah,
or and started following him, but I did years ago, maybe not long after I started following you and
yeah.
in the modeling
Seen
stuff.
his growth.
Yeah, and seen a decent amount of
Yes.
growth, and it was crazy because I think. And it may even been because someone I know tagged him, like some girls that I grew up with.
Hmm. Oh,
Uh,
I'm sure they did. No, just playing.
but I think they posted like a
Yeah.
throwback picture of them as little
Yeah,
kids playing or something
yeah.
like that.
He's the same. I mean, he not to say he's the same dude, but he really is.
Yeah, but then I click on his social and I'm looking at it, I'm like, hold on, this dude is a big deal.
Yeah,
And he's
he's
from right around the corner and
yeah,
grew up with a lot of people I grew up with, and I never knew who he was. So
named
it was,
one of the top influencers and stylists in the country
yeah,
by
he's
everybody
big, man.
school
He's
school.
big, doing so much stuff with players in the
Yeah,
NBA
yeah,
and
baseball, everything,
yeah, yeah.
commercials, creative content, all kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and I seen he just started his brand recently,
He
or
was
like a brand he's
like a
involved with.
capsule. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his
With
hand is in everything, man.
yeah.
Like I said, he went from I seen his where he started, what he did, and I can't help but to celebrate people that are from here. We don't do that enough. Like unfortunately, we had. I mean, I say unfortunately, but we had people like Bow Wow when I grew up that left and never came back. But he's
Mm-hmm.
still from here.
Mm-hmm.
You have people from the West Side like a Michael Red that was an Olympian, and I know Mike and just talked to him a couple weeks ago, and is doing great for himself. But to me, it's like you have to appreciate the people while they're here. It's like we lost Nipsey Hussle, who I was a fan of his content, his music, his thought process, and seeing his maturation from like street to business mogul, and to lose somebody like that, it's like you have to celebrate people while they're here.
Smell the flowers while you're still
Yeah,
here
while
for
they're making an
sure, man.
impact and understand that. And I think it's so important because it's so easy, and sometimes even in Columbus, it makes the city feel small
Mm-hmm.
when everybody's focus is always on mistakes. It's amazing that most of our culture they'll give a platform for, hey man, let's rate our experience. And the only time people use that is when they're unhappy. But the 1,000 people that enjoyed you will never take the time to say, man, this was the greatest experience in the
Or
world.
they will, but it's like person to person, as opposed to going and seeking out the
Exactly.
site to give you that rating. It's like you said, it's the negative person that wants to go on there and give
Everybody
you
already,
a
oh,
F grade or give you a 1 star or give you this and that. Those are the ones that are going out
we're
there
trained methodically to gravitate to the negative
to
aspect.
negativity for
And so
sure.
I've really tried to cultivate my mind so I wouldn't stay in those sinkers, because when you run a business or you do anything, you're gonna have highs and lows, ups and downs, ins and outs. And so to try to stay, whether I'm up or I'm down, to just kind of stay in that same place, to keep the faith, to keep working, is to say, you know what, I may have made a mistake, but I can apologize for it, I can make up for it, or I'll try to do my best not to make this mistake again, and not to be too down on myself, not to be too high, like, oh, I made it, I'm that dude, you gotta come see me, like try, not be that guy either.
For sure.
So I think just trying to learn the balance, and sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, I think it has to be in every lane that people have a business in or are doing big things in. It has to be hard to. I mean, think about guys who are at the top of the top, and some of the guys like you're talking about that you've worked with, and some of
Mm.
the guys we just mentioned now. It's like for him to even kind of shut you down when you say you're the goat or this and that. It's just
He
like
don't like hearing
they
it.
don't want to hear it, and I hear a lot of them say they fear ever taking on that mentality
Yeah,
because they want that fight and they want to
I feel
feel
like
like
they're
there's still
still,
more, or they
yeah.
still need to stay at it, or they haven't made it, that they got to
But
keep
it's like
pushing
you're gonna be somebody's inspiration. Like
for
I
sure.
was working out today with a guy that you probably should have on the show, Six Southpaw. He's a boxer,
I know who he is.
and so
I don't know him well, but I have him on social
yeah,
and kind of.
so he, I remember when he first got started, and so we were talking just about his journey, and so I just love to kind of get into all kind of different things like salsa and boxing, like, and I guess they mix, but he was just
Yeah,
talking about
footwork.
exactly. So we were talking about our relationship and how like it had an impact on his entrepreneurship. And so he's a person that, you would never know that's like another little brother to me, you know. But he pushes me in the gym, and it's like, man, and I'm a fan of his work and his dedication and his discipline, and where he's come from and what he's doing, and I support him. And so to have that conversation with him today was super impactful. And somebody's gonna look up to you to some degree. You know what I mean? He mentioned that today, like, man, you've been such an inspiration. Appreciate you. And I was like, man, you inspire me too. It's super cool to see what you're doing. And like I said, Brandon is one of those people, and there's a few people in the city that I just truly am inspired by the platform that they've taken on, the energy and effort at what they've created to be a master, and have gone from there.
It's
So,
exactly why I created this, man. It's
yep.
exactly why I created this and brought on the people that I've brought on and bring you on and the people that will come on in the future is because I saw a lot of this and I felt like in a lot of ways is like there's a lot of negative thoughts towards the people in Columbus. There's a lot of negative thoughts towards
Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
minorities. There's a lot of negative thoughts towards a lot of things that I'm
Hmm.
like, some people I don't even know if you realize what people are really doing out here.
Oh no,
People are doing
absolutely,
amazing things and
absolutely,
creating great businesses,
yeah,
generating good wealth and legacy
absolutely,
for themselves and their
absolutely,
family. And I
yeah,
really wanted to shed some light on that.
yeah. And I
At
applaud you
this,
for that,
I
for doing
appreciate it,
that.
man. But at the same time, I knew like I'm gonna be real about it. And like I told you, name the podcast what it is because I wanted people to know. Like I want to know. Like I want to know these details. I want to hear you guys' story,
Yeah,
but also I want to take a little bit of the value that that the guests provide
yeah,
as far as insights on business and just getting through things and
yeah,
maturing and all the things that we talk about on
yep,
here that really is like all about growth and there's really people doing big things in Columbus and has been for a long time
yeah.
and it's awesome I think that I can provide a little bit of platform for them
Nah,
but
great
also I
platform.
can get the information and let them provide value while hopefully I'm providing some value and
Yeah,
spreading their name as well.
yeah, you're absolutely providing value, and I applaud you for doing the show and even the direction because most people, again, you feel like you're playing the instrument, and so people always want what they want from you. And if you can take that from like, okay, I don't have to just do the song and dance and talk about microns and meals and what fabrics I can provide and the 10 top clients that I have, I can actually create to talk and share about my mentality is to say, hey, here's where my mind is, and this is probably the root of my success. Even though obviously there's some discipline here,
Right.
but to be honest, to get up every day, the hard part is to stay in a space, like you said, that has value and has a root system, for me and faith and other things, and family and creating wealth and being an individual, whatever the case may be. So
Yeah,
I applaud you, man. So
I appreciate
I
it,
don't
man.
know where
That's
you want to go with the show, but I feel good about it. I feel like it's going to do big things.
I just want to continue to go on and provide the value that I can while I bring on guests that allow them to provide more value and kind of even just give a piece for their social or for
Yeah.
themselves to kind of put their story out there and maybe help them bring in more attention or more people that really can connect with them because I feel like I see that now more than ever is that's what people want, that's what customers want. They want to be able to connect and it makes so much sense when you talk about things like how you are with people and that it's just a relationship and that you talk to them and how you approach them
Hmm.
and how you just treat them like a everyday person, things like that, that it creates that because that also creates the same customers as far as online or it creates followers or creates
Hmm.
whatever is when someone can just connect. So I hope that I'm giving that to people as well
Yeah,
too.
you are. You're definitely giving it, being prepared, all of that stuff. It says a lot, even if you take the time to look at what people have done, and because sometimes people can undervalue themselves, or sometimes a person like me is like, I'm not necessarily thinking about it. I just like, all right, I'm happy to be there. I say yes, like pull me in because I don't know, what I'm gonna be doing in a couple of days, but
I
let's do
appreciate you.
it.
I appreciate you like crazy. You're one of the first guests actually that like as soon as I hit you, you're like, yeah, I'm free soon. Let's make it happen. I'm like, my God, because that's been one of the biggest problems with this, and I'm sure you run into that like crazy with your business. But like scheduling, man, scheduling is tough, man, especially when you're dealing with busy
Oh
people.
man,
So I know
yes,
you deal with that like crazy, and
yeah,
that's what happens with me. Like I'm literally dealing with people who are trying to run their own businesses.
yeah, it's
So when I
rough.
talk to them, it's like sometimes I remember when I first started, and I think I've mentioned on here before, like I hit a few people talking about it, and I'm thinking they're like, oh yeah, man, we can get together Thursday, or we could get together this and that. And I had a couple people like, I might have something in about 2 months, 3 months. I might have something after the summer. I might have, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's a
this is
whole nother
different than
level.
I
Yeah,
thought. This
so
is way different.
yeah, because like for me, it's like this week, my son's out for school, but he was just with me, so like I
Hmm.
have a couple of days of buffer, and I didn't crazy pack my day. It's right after the holiday, and I'm like, okay, but I really don't know what the end of the week is gonna look like, or the next 15 days.
Gotcha.
So when I have time, and it's like that for most people. The blessing is I do have flexibility, but I get it, man. But I think that keep doing it. I think it's great because you can add value, and that'll add a continued platform for you when people hear and see the difference between the conversation between you and other people is that they'll want to other people would jump on. It's just like I looked and I'm like, oh yeah, all the homies has already been on here. I know these guys. I worked out with this guy. I know this guy. Played basketball with this guy, and it adds endorsement and it'll continue to grow. Obviously your intent is to add value and you're bringing value, and so you have great help, and which mean you're doing it in an excellent way. So I think that it's gonna be great. However you chop the content up, however you put it out, I'm sure it's gonna be great.
I
So
appreciate it big time, man.
congratulations to what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it big time. That's exactly what I'm trying to do, is trying to provide value. And that's exactly what I want to do go forward, is trying to do more, trying to provide some more value. So I'm going to try to do a little bit more on my social, that's even based on other things, whether it be fitness and uh, eating and nutrition, because I went through a crazy struggle with getting sick and having to
Mm,
learn a lot about what I eat and what I take in. And it created a situation where I know a pretty good amount about nutrition and food and
yeah.
your diet and stuff like that now. So I'm going to start trying to put more of that out and just do what I can to give people more, provide more value, not only because what it will lead to for this or for other things, but also the older I get and the more, like, a lot of the things we talked about, it's just like just doing that and being that person. It's just those feelings are beneficial, just to see that you can help somebody, or just
Yeah.
to feel like you might help somebody out of a struggle.
Yeah, you never know who's going through things, and like that was part of my reason of like I don't want to say I'm a super macho dude, but I'm kind of like I'm a guy's guy. So like
Hmm.
I'm not talking about when I'm hurt, or like it's not something I'm gonna share with the world. But like recently, I was talking about my Achilles because I messed it up when I was in one of my friends' gyms, and I was like, oh, I'm about to come in here and work out, and he gonna get my Achilles right. And then one of my friends was like, bro, what happened to your Achilles? I was like, dang, I put it out everywhere. And then I thought about it though, because I was like, most of us that are guarded, people that work really hard, we don't talk about the times in between. Not like I'm about to have a pity party and sit here and, it's after the fact at this point. But it's
Hmm.
like, look, I went through something. We talked about it earlier about what I learned from that experience, right? So it's so much value, because somebody could have a hard day and be going through something with an Achilles, with a knee. And I was thinking, like, so many people walked by me. I was in a wheelchair when I was traveling. I still went to 3 states while I had an Achilles boot on. I'm flying to Florida. Like I seen one of the twins that's playing for Seattle, the one that's an amputee,
Hmm.
right? And they're
Hmm.
walking towards me, and I'm like, I'm sitting here in a jogging suit with some shoes, and I want to sell this cat a suit, and I'm in a wheelchair. You know what I mean?
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
I'm getting up just to say what's up, and they was pitying me, like, "What's up?" And I'm like, so look, man, I was playing basketball, but it turned into a funny story. And I was like, look, I normally don't look like this,
Right, right,
but I
right.
would love to work with you. But either way, it was funny. He was like, man, you need to stop hooping. I'm like, that's how you feel.
That
so,
hurts. That hurts.
right. But I say that to say, I learned a ton. Is I definitely have a lot more empathy for people that have physical issues. They're walked over. You don't understand the inconveniences, and people have to live with this stuff forever. And I only had to deal with it for a year or so, and it took a toll on my mentality. It took a toll on my confidence. I couldn't wear the things I wanted to wear. It was such an inconvenience. I had to think about where I had to go. I had to ask for help to get to the airport. I had to get ice for my son. Like, it was so many things, decisions I make every day, and I just looked over them, that it gave me more gratitude, that I can get up and I can walk and I can drive and I can actually, okay, I might have had a not a great month because I was doing the things I don't necessarily like to do, which is follow up and call everybody. But at least I have my limbs and I can get out here the next day and get to it. And so I learned a ton from that. And then what I was able to share, which was just a glimpse, was to say, look, what I've learned. And that's why I shared a little bit about my Achilles publicly, because I feel like if I can help someone, why would I keep that inside?
Yeah.
And so part of my purpose, I know, is about inspiration. You
Yeah,
know,
and like you said two big things there, the empathy and the gratitude. That's something that I noticed in a major way, and it's why, like, I've even been telling people now recently, where I'm like, how there's the routine of, like, telling yourself in the morning of 5 things you're grateful for, 10 things
yeah,
you're grateful for. I was telling somebody just the other day, my brother-in-law, I was saying, like, when you can get to a point where you say, I'm grateful for the horrible things that have happened to me,
yeah,
or the biggest struggles in my life,
yep,
that's where it really gets game changing. And that empathy, it's weird how us as humans, man, till we have something happen
man,
that really, like, opens our eyes and makes us realize all the things we take for granted, especially our health. Our
yeah,
health is the biggest one, because
huge.
I just have explained it to so many people. Like, before I got sick, before I
Hmm.
was unhealthy, it was literally something that was never even a thought of
Didn't
mine.
even think about
Never even considered it. Like, I would, yeah, of course, hear people say, like, oh, so and so got cancer or this and that, and you think a little bit about that stuff or whatever. But just like some of the small stuff, or like, and like with me getting something that was like a stomach and digestion issue, with
it.
you having like just an injury from sports and stuff, it's like you don't really prepare yourself for that, or you
Mm,
don't ever really think how massively it's going to affect your life.
mm,
And then when you do, you see all the things that maybe you weren't empathetic to in other people.
exactly.
And that's how I was before. So, like you say, being a man's man or being a certain type of way, I always felt before like, oh man, suck that up, or somebody's
Exactly.
somebody's talking a certain way, or that, yeah, I'm not trying to hear that again, or they need to just do this, or yeah, or they created that situation for themselves. It is what it is, whatever, you know what I mean? And then now going through things, it definitely does make you more on the side of like, yeah, I kind of can understand part of it, or if it's something way worse than we've dealt with, it's like, man, I can't even imagine. I need to probably think about how I can be even more empathetic towards the situation.
Hmm.
But it's an eye opening thing that I think is really cool, and it's really cool when you can think about it in a good way after it happens. Once you get to that point, and of course it takes time. It takes time
Yeah.
to get to that
But it's
process.
a life lesson, and I think it's tools that you do want to pass on to your children. You want to pass it on because sometimes that mentality, you don't have in your family.
Hmm.
You know, and as an entrepreneur, I think if you don't have family that are entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs, you don't know what a survival skill is. And like we just got out of Mental Health Month, but like there's so many things about it just taking care of yourself. Like me
Hmm.
going to the gym today was me getting over my injury, me spending time for myself. It had nothing to do with work. And that's hard for somebody to do this. Like, when you're rational, I'm like, I mean, I don't need to go to the gym. I mean, I want to look good, but I need to call this
Do a
client
lot of other
back and
things
follow up with
for
these four
sure.
people and make sure his schedule is on point. Where it's like, no, this is for me. I'm on a plan. Like I'm doing my little 40 days of fitness right now that I'm
Okay.
starting. I'll be 40 in August, and I'm going to Ghana actually.
Okay.
And so I've been working on my eating closer to like vegan, vegetarian for some time.
Okay.
And then I kind of got off of it and, Memorial and start tripping. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
So now I'm kind of getting back tucked in where I'm like, let me pay attention to what I put in my body. It helps my performance, it helps how I feel. And so that is something I had to literally think about. Like, you have to take care of yourself, or I won't be here
Yep,
as long as
the
I want
stuff
to
you
be.
put in this machine, man, the fuel you
It's
put in is
imperative.
so important. I heard somebody talking about that the other day, and it's something that is so major that I think a lot of people will never know until they try it, until they really make a conscious effort to shift their diet around. And that was the one thing that changed things early on for me when I first started working out. And I've talked about it before in here. I just would notice, like, if I ate crap, if
Oh,
I
yeah.
ate junk food, if I
Yeah,
ate, especially eating like greasy fast foods and fried stuff and stuff
exactly.
like that, and go try to work
Sluggish.
out, sluggish and just like death. And like I would either want to throw up or I just had no strength and I would just almost feel sick by the time I was done working out. And then if I ate fairly clean or even not eating in the fasting and stuff that's becoming real popular now in the
Hmm.
intermittent fasting, it's like then you got the juice, man. That's
Yeah.
when you're in there feeling good.
Feel
And
comfortable, not as
I
dense, not
started noticing I didn't have to have pre-workouts. I didn't have, I mean, a lot of things as I would
or
play.
naps. Not just
Yeah, yeah, but naps for sure too. But playing around with the diet, man, it's a game changer for sure. But another thing I was thinking about that I wanted to get into before we get off here is so man, I see you on social. I've always watched you over the years, and even talking to you now, you speak really well. I love the keys and the motivational things that you kind of provide even when you're not trying to, because you're not even a super motivational rah-rah
I'm
guy.
real laid back, right?
Yeah, yeah, but the little tidbits that are
Right.
coming
Thanks.
out are gems, man, and
Right.
it's things that people can latch onto and stuff. Have you done much speaking engagements or been invited to, or have you considered doing more of them?
Yeah, so I've been working with the Urban League for about 6 years, and I help do all the infrastructure for my brother's closet. And so, as a partner for that, I would come in and do workshops on choose the change or what do you dress for success. And so, I'll get up and really go through what are keys that you need for your wardrobe, and how do you dress, or how do you tie a tie, how do you tie a bow tie, what are essentials, and the mentality of a person that is a winner or a person that wants to change the momentum. So I've been doing that for quite some time, and obviously early on in my my earlier years when I started, I was doing a little bit more speaking and things that were more faith based oriented.
Oh, okay,
But there's been some time, so a lot of my time now is spent around wardrobe and dress for success. So I'll do that at least once a quarter, 4 times a year, and at one point it was once a month.
okay,
And so in this next season, I'm going to be transitioning some stuff, and I've been thinking about doing some stuff in an ebook form,
hmm,
or some other things that will kind of transition so people can kind of hear that side of me. So obviously been kind of dripping on my social media now just to show like it is in my wheelhouse to
I
some
love it, man.
degree,
Hmm.
and people are just getting like just kind of small tips. But to be honest, the stuff that really means more is probably the conversation we had today.
Gotcha.
The tips are easy. That's the fun part,
Right,
right?
right,
That's
right.
what people kind of tune in for. But I
Hmm.
think kind of the life keys of what I feel like kind of keeps me all wrapped up.
Where have you been picking up some of your social tips lately of like what to do or ways to go about doing things on social?
So I have been winging it. So
Hey,
I looked
sometimes it's the
at
best way.
yeah. So
Learn
I
the process.
found an app, and I always seek to be authentic. So I pretty much have like my cousin works for does some work for me, and she'll just point the camera like we did before we started, and I'll think about what I want to do, and I just go for it. So I
Gotcha.
don't really have a method right now because
It's good though, man. I'm telling you, it's good. I
they,
mean,
things Gary Vee's always about content,
hmm,
because I was worried about perfection and like you even have
Me
close
too, man.
connection, and you have a great person to do that. I'm like, I can't afford you, so
Right.
maybe in a couple years, come see. No, but I think it's one of those things where I'm not going to focus on it being necessarily perfect. I just want people to get used to seeing me and me add value.
It
And
seems to be that that's the wave anyways, man.
I just want to add value.
That's what people want anyway, and that's the key. I mean, that's why I'm harping on it. That's why I brought it up multiple times. That's why I'm trying to do my best to try to figure out ways going forward that I can do way more and giving value
Yeah.
in any way I can.
Well, I
But
think the opportunity to have a platform, of you with your intentionality of like learning about people that are, going ahead preparing like you have, that the value is to me an exchange of appreciation. Anytime you start with gratitude, it opens up the room for more. Like,
gotcha.
you get,
Okay.
there was a guy said, you learn more by listening, you get more by giving, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
um,
That's real cool. Yeah, I haven't heard
yeah,
that one.
yeah, you learn more by listening, you get more by giving. And there's a third one, but it was just those are two things that I always think about. Is that if I can leave the room and I've impacted a person through a conversation, through something I've learned, by just giving them value to say, look, think about it this way. It doesn't mean I'm a master in that thought. It just means I can provoke you to think a little bit differently. Then I've left you with something that's intangible yet that has value and is greater than whatever the exchange was intended
For
to
sure, man. For sure. You sound a lot like a lot of other people I brought on here, the people I keep around me,
be. Yeah,
and what I try to do for people for sure too. And don't get me wrong, you get that pushback sometimes where people just don't want to hear your opinion on a thing.
exactly.
But a lot of times I feel like it's more important for us to try to give out the value or the gems that we can, as opposed to worrying so much about the one out of every so many people that's going to take it the wrong way or take it as you're being a know-it-all or this and that. It's like, hey, it's out there if you want to take it, if you want to use it. I want to be the person that's not withholding anything. You know what I mean? If you mention something that I might be able to give you a little info on, I don't want to hold it back and feel like, dang, I should have said this to them. Maybe I could have helped them out.
Exactly.
But with what you were saying, it made me think about. I don't know if you've already checked out Josh's book, but you
Nah.
definitely should, because I think this is something that will really hit with you. It's a short book. It's a quick read, which is even better about it. But it talks about doing little things like we talked about, whether it be the speaking engagements or like you saying the ebook and things like that, doing things like that so you're making money without you having to physically be there and while you sleep and all that type of thing. And I think for someone like you, that's probably the thing that
So
someone
I'm
that's
all
as
about it
busy
right
as
now.
you,
I'm
someone
all
that's
about
as
it. I'm not
busy
gonna
as
be
you,
there. I'm
yeah,
about to make some money.
yeah, making that money while you
Yeah,
sleep, man.
I
Or
need some of them checks now.
yeah, and I
I'm
feel
unlearning
like
some things.
what I'm hearing in this story, man, and the things you're doing and your knowledge, man, there's a million people out there looking for it, man, and there's a million people that are starting
Appreciate
in
it.
your industry that are for sure could gain a ton of knowledge from what you got to give. And I know from hearing you now too, with your attention to detail, with the knowledge that you have, the experience, all that, you would know exactly what to put out too that would be so detailed and right to the point, you know what I mean, and right the information that they need to where then the people that get it will start doing that word of mouth, and it will do well just because I can tell how intentional you are with what you say and what you're putting out there. And
Yeah.
it to me it screams success, man. It
Yeah, I
screams
appreciate
that
it.
it would come to
I
you.
appreciate it. It's definitely been on my mind. It's just, obviously isolating the time and saying, okay, it's something else I don't know that I have
Right,
to
right, right.
dive into, right? Never wrote a book, never, and even though I've done speaking, but it's like, there's speaking and then there's like, oh, there's a whole nother level of it too, right?
Hmm.
So when you have guys like E.T. or, even Vaynerchuk,
Everybody starts
oh
somewhere,
my
man.
gosh. Yeah, absolutely, right?
Everybody starts somewhere, man. And I've talked to my producer and stuff about it. I even thought about us like eventually putting on an event that we
That
do
would be
with
cool.
all the people that we brought on here.
Yep, that would
And
be
it's like
cool.
an event that a lot of people could attend
Absolutely.
and just have a lot of the guys that, or I should say people in general, because I have a few females coming on soon too.
Yeah.
But that can get up there and just give a short speech, whatever, on to the next, and people can get so much good information
Oh,
from
man.
multiple different people in different
Yeah.
angles, and just to see, like, so you kind of talked about that early on with like your mentor thing, and I've mentioned in this podcast over and over, when you get to see people, whether it be in your life or face to face, and really hear their story too, and or you just know them and know where they came from, similar as Brandon Williams, this and that, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
then you can really see it in yourself.
Yeah, it's an impactor. It's a
It gives
game
that
changer.
boost.
It's a game changer. Like it was the one thing that I always done, with my son is like if I'm in a certain space and he can appreciate it, he can appreciate it now. Because we were at athlete's house and probably like 7 cars and all the cars were over $200,000 a piece, right? So I was taking pictures of him there. He's like 5 years old or 4 years old, And so I sent it to him. He was like, "Oh my gosh!" Once he's 10, he can understand. Like, dude, I was
Okay.
next to this. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You're used to meeting people that are successful, and I want that to be normal for you. It's nothing.
That's dope,
You
man.
got hands like you got hands. Then what's the difference between you and him?"
Right.
That's what I'm making. That's the point I'm making.
I love
It's the
that. I
hard
love
work,
that.
dedication. Like,
Whew.
there's nothing that can separate you. You can be there too. And that's the thing. It's like if we train ourselves to be winners by being around people that had the right mentality and the right direction and the right concentration, then we can appreciate. Like, you can be in the same business and I can appreciate what you do.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and that why not me
Yeah.
thought process. That's what I told Josh. His book did a lot for me and was a big inspiration for me to do the podcast, because it was kind of like I grew up with him and I seen what he was doing and stuff, and I was like, man, why not me doing something in my lane or
Why
doing something a
not?
different way?
Somebody you're gonna approach it a different way than the next person. You've been made specifically how you've been through all of your experiences, and there's something for you to do. So for you to transition from modeling, you've done it. It's not that you're opposed to it, but it wasn't necessarily the fit. Now you can eliminate something that you may or may not want to do in the future, and now you see you have a voice. Right.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that get into spaces. What I feel like that you sometimes you start off as an echo, right? You sound like your mentors, you look like your mentors, but eventually, if you work hard enough, you become a voice. And that's kind of, I'm about to be 40, so it's like I'm in a super authentic place where it's like, I'm gonna sound like me.
Yeah, it's weird how the age does that to you,
I'm
man.
gonna look like me.
Yeah, it's weird how the age does that to you, and I mean, having kids does that to you.
All of it. Yeah.
All of it, and it just makes you kind of just more and more get that I don't care, like I'm not worried about the how I look or how this or trying to be this type of person, whatever. The older you get, the less you care, especially as males. I see it in males for sure, where we're just like we care less more about the small stuff or the stupid stuff, and we start to learn who we are and what we want to be and what we want to put out.
Exactly. And you can be, through a lot of your mistakes, you can be helpful to somebody else.
For sure,
And I
for
think,
sure.
there's always somebody that started something. There's always somebody that impacted something, whether it's an industry of sports to podcasting, that it's great to have that foundation. And now you have a stepping stone to go to the next level. Use those cues, take what you can, and then create your own.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to draw from this, and what I try to have the people. I always ask people on here, like I asked you about the setback of your Achilles and different things like that, or things that you kind of learned along the way. A lot of the failures are little bumps in the road that you mentioned, how they were like setbacks, but they also let you know for the next time, or they teach you something.
Yeah.
But it takes me right into what the last two things before we get out of here, man, is so. What's up next for the brand, for you? Like, what is, like, just without, you don't have to, like you said, you kind of got something you're holding, that's fine too. But at the same time, like, where do you see it going from here?
So the Jump Select brand, great question, is we are really niching out. We've been carving a space for looking for particular clients that can appreciate and value what we do. And so that's not going to stop. And so what we're going to do is really niching into this space of automation, of really connecting to me in a genuine way, in a more elite particular way, because I have other ventures that I'm going to be, getting into, which some of it may be in the speaking venture. I have other collaborations that I'm looking at, the store piece that I have coming up. And so there's going to take a lot of my time. So then I'm going to niche out to say, look, what my process is not going to be for everyone, but if it's for you, we're going to give you the whole process in such a VIP way that you're going to love the experience. So right now I'm working on all of those, small nuances that will allow my brand to continue to stand out, and also to be able to levitate me in an area where you're going to specifically understand that's the Jones Select brand.
Gotcha. I love it, man. That's good to hear. That's because I want, from what I hear, man, and what I'm seeing you, I want you to do some more of these things, man.
I am. I'm looking forward to it. I've been a person, I feel like I've been quiet for a long time.
It's time to start talking.
Yeah, I have to be who I am eventually. Right?
I love that though, man. I love that though, because I'm so sure there's people early on that doubted you, and I feel like I even heard stuff. And early on when I came in, of everybody just, I would hear so many different like designers or people kind of just like throwing things out about other designers. Yeah, shade and stuff, and it was just like. Back then, I didn't even know enough to even know like if anybody had any validity to what they were saying. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay. Like half the time I didn't know who they were talking about.
Exactly.
Half the time I'm like, I don't know enough about the fashion to say that's whacker.
It's so funny, man. There's always, when you're making a mark, there's another saying, when you're making a mark, you're always going to attract erasers. You know what I mean?
That's dope too. I like that one too.
The thing is like, what I would say to anybody doing a business even with your podcast is like,
that's exactly what my next question was, man.
Right
Get into it. Yep, that's the one. That's the wrap up question. So let's make it happen.
So what I feel like it is that, the one question people always ask me, man, you still doing suits? My answer is absolutely. You got to get up every day and you have to do it. You have to prepare for your next thing. There are going to be times that maybe the interview won't go like you wanted it to. Maybe somebody will get upset. Not saying they will. I hope they don't, right? There might be something that goes wrong with technicalities. Maybe you didn't capture everything you wanted to, right? There's maybe you don't get the sponsors right away. Who knows where it's going to go? But the thing you have to do is get up every day and work on your craft. Get up every day and do it when you feel like it. Do it when you don't feel like it. Do it when people think you're crazy. Do it when you make mistakes. You just have to get up and do it. And that's what it's about. When I look at any athlete, it's all about disciplines. They get up, they work on it. They work on the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. They still got to go to practice. They still got to play the game, right? Giannis just lost that finals. He's not going to quit basketball because of that mistake, right? Because he couldn't pull his team to the next level. He took that experience, he learned, and he kept working. And so my advice is to really get up every day. If you love it, do what you love, right? Keep working on your craft, keep working on, how you do what you do. You seem very well prepared, very well versed, very professional. Keep working on it. You know what I mean? And just keep doing it, because at the end of the day, you never know what can happen. You could be nationally syndicated. You could be, who knows where you're going to go, right? But you're never going to get there if you just don't focus on it. You know what I mean?
Quit.
Yeah. And, and that was the one thing that kept me motivated. It's like, there's times I wanted to quit. No question. I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. I don't have to deal with these customers. I don't have to deal with
get a
any of y'all,
gig.
right? If you hear the real Jones, it's like, you can kick rocks, right? But as a person that's evolved and trying to mature, right? I'm thinking, you know what? I can't show this to my family to say I quit because why?
My guy.
You know what I mean? So now I'm showing you that you quit, right? There's times my son now is just proud because he's like, and he has a little more extra swagger on him. Like, you're not going to be like me. I need to figure out how to make sure you humble because you do a lot. But it's a good problem.
They come from that Steph Curry era, man. Everything is a celebration.
Please
everything.
Don't throw that up right now.
Everything is pumping themselves up.
Exactly. But it's good because confidence is a hard thing to attain, really, right? And so what I feel like is that you have to think about, the people that you'll let down if you quit, right? And what example are you setting? And sometimes, it doesn't mean that businesses don't fail and you don't learn from those experiences. But what I'm saying is that overall, we have one life to live. We have one chance to live a life, and that means you're going to take chance. That means you're going to fail. That means you're going to succeed, and I feel like, don't get too high. Maybe you're going to have, B Wills, maybe I'll put you in contact with him. He comes back in town, he'll slide, he'll pull up. Right?
Yeah, it would be super dope, man. But either way.
But my point is, in saying that, is that you're one person away from who you want to interview and what you feel like will put you in a good space, right? And I can't speak for that man, but what I will say is that there are going to be people that say yes, there are going to be people that say no.
For sure.
They both matter and they both don't. Because at the end of the day, it's about your purpose, your goal, your passion, your direction. And people are going to talk. What is he doing? How's he doing it? That's great. If they're talking, that means you're doing something. So that's what I would say.
I love it, man. You're the first person to come on here and speak to me in a degree more so than just speaking out there, like putting it out there. And I'm not saying that in any negative sort of way against the other guests, but you're the first one to translate it and also make it personal to me, but also giving that value at the same time and speaking about yourself and what you learned and what you've done through the process that has brought you to this point, and give me inspiration and motivation and compliment all at the same time. And I really appreciate it.
No problem,
it was
man.
Awesome. Super glad you came on, man. And super glad we connected years ago. And the connection now came in a totally different way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of wearing a suit, we talk about suits.
And for anybody that wants to know, Jones Select on all social media, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm sure everybody will have no problem getting in touch with you, man. I love it, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Yeah, let's get it.